Chapter 672. Noah, who had been sitting at the top with Sizax, Seraph, Achuka, and Felubium, looked down at everything that was happening below. When Theodora was about to hold Aisha's hand, he suddenly felt that something was wrong. That feeling was as if some unpleasant smell had suddenly been mixed into the originally fresh air, and it was very uncomfortable. Of course, it was not that Noah could not bear to see Aisha being touched by others, but Noah's extremely sharp intuition was telling him that this matter was definitely not as simple as it seemed on the surface. This made Noah's eyes flicker. One had to know that Noah's intuition was not some inexplicable sixth sense for no reason, but was directly linked to the hints of the world. Therefore, under normal circumstances, if Noah's intuition sensed something bad, it was half of the time that something was wrong. Noah also trusted his intuition very much. At that moment, Noah stared in Liatha's direction with a hint of sharp pressure in his eyes. This pressure made Liath finally react. After understanding, she immediately stepped forward and stood in front of Aisha. "Wait a minute, Theodora." Theodora, who was about to hold Aisha's hand, raised her head and looked at Liath. Aisha was obviously relieved, proving that she did not know how to deal with Theodora at all. While hiding behind Liath, she also looked in Noah's direction for help. Noah just nodded at Aisha, and she understood something and showed a relieved expression. So, the demon that Aisha saved during the time of the church is the next master of the Astaroth family? It's because of him that Aisha was exiled from the church, right? Genova and Irina stood beside Aisha as if they wanted to protect her. They started to size up Diodora seriously. But in the face of everyone's gazes, Diodora completely ignored them as if Leah's was the only one in her eyes. She stood up and smiled gently. "What's wrong? The eldest daughter of the Gimli family? Aren't you asking the obvious?" Lias put on an awe-inspiring expression and flashed an imposing smile at Theodora. "Although I didn't expect that the demon that Aisha saved back then was the next master of the Astaroth family, the person you proposed to is my relative. It shouldn't be strange for me to ask, right?" Hearing this, Theodora lowered her head, thought seriously for a moment and said, "Indeed, Aisha is your relative. If I propose to Aisha, as the master, you will inevitably ask." With that said, Theodora smiled slightly. "In that case, why don't you make a deal with me?" "Deal?" Liath was stunned for a moment. Then she immediately understood. "You mean a deal between chess pieces?" "That's right. Let's exchange my kin with yours," Theodora said. "I just want Aisha." As soon as this sentence, many people. Noah, who was sitting at the top, stared at Theodora, and his eyes gradually began to glow with a cold light. "A deal?" Liath smiled, and her smile was unusually cold. "You mean you want to get the person you want to propose to through a deal? I know that Aisha used 4 pawns when she was reincarnated, so I will also prepare the best 4 pawns to exchange with you. I will definitely not let you suffer a loss." Theodora did not realize that there was anything wrong with her approach at all, and continued to speak as if it was a matter of course. "It's just a pawn. There shouldn't be a need to be so calculative, right? A mere pawn?" She actually said that the person she planned to propose to was a pawn? Originally, the people present knew that Theodora had been saved by Aisha, and now the proposal was because of the life-saving grace at that time. That was why they were prepared to express their love in front of everyone. The scene must have been very inspirational and warm. However, what was Theodora saying now? Did Theodora know what she was saying? With Liath in the lead, Junai, Genova, Irina, Label, Kibayuto, and the others all revealed cold expressions. Even Songna and his family frowned and looked at Theodora coldly. If Theodora's words were true, then what he was expressing was not love at all, but ugly hypocrisy. Noah, who was sitting at the top, already understood why he felt that something was wrong. This was because if Aisha was really allowed to fall into Theodora's hands, she would definitely end up in a terrible state. Immediately, Noah turned his head and looked at Achuka. "Achuka, that's the kid from your family, right?" Noah's sudden question attracted everyone's attention. Achuka nodded gently as if everything that Theodora did could not enter his sight. He did not care at all. However, even though he did not care much, The coquettish smile on Achuka's face had already disappeared. It was obvious that Achuka felt that the situation could not be resolved peacefully. Even though they had only known each other for a month, Achuka already had the most basic understanding of Noah. Therefore, Achuka knew that, for Noah, the more he should be furious in a situation, the calmer he would be. In such a situation, Noah said calmly, "Let me make it clear." Then let me make it clear first. Even if you want to make a decision for that brat from your family, I will not agree. Do you understand? Achuka finally revealed a bitter smile. Down below, Diodora, who didn't expect Noah to interfere, was stunned. Then she frowned. "Mr. Noah, even you have no right to interfere in this matter, right?" Noah glanced at Theodora. "Aisha is living in my family now, so she's like family to me. Do you think I have the right to interfere in this matter?" "Is that so?" Diodora nodded as if she had understood the situation and said, "Then, Mr. Noah, what do I have to do to make you give Aisha to me?" Through her words and sentences, Diodora revealed that she didn't treat Aisha as a person, but as an object that could be traded and transferred at will. Even the naive and slow-witted Aisha noticed this, and a sad expression appeared on her face. Noah took a deep look at Theodora, feeling a surge of emotions in his heart. "Is that so? Do you really want Aisha?" With that, Noah stood up and walked down step by step under everyone's gaze. "If that's the case, I'll give you a chance." Teacher? Liaz, Kana, and the rest of the family members were all shocked. "Teacher." Aisha was also a little shocked. Noah only raised his hand, indicating that he was leaving everything to him, but his eyes did not move away from Theodora. "As long as you pass my test, I can give you this chance." Everyone present was shocked and began to talk about it. What is Noah planning to do? Could it be that he was going to fight Diodora? Isn't that too much of a bully? Theodora's brows furrowed deeper and deeper, and even the gentle smile on her face was a little distorted. "Although I am very confident in my own strength, no matter what, I do not dare to say that I can compete with the existence of the Red Dragon Emperor, who is on the same level as the God and the Demon King. Aren't you going too far?" "Don't worry, I won't bully you." Noah walked down the high platform and came in front of Theodora, his deep eyes filled with pressure. "I'll give you 10 minutes. In these 10 minutes, I won't make a move, and I won't do anything. I'll just stand here and let you attack me. There are 2 conditions for you to win." Noah stretched out 2 fingers, and his voice was still as calm as ever. 1. You have to leave a mark on my body in 10 minutes. Even if there's a tear on my clothes or a strand of my hair, you win. 2. I'll make my move in 10 minutes, and I'll only use 1 move. If you can still stand up after the first move, then it's your win. Noah raised his eyes and looked at Theodora, who had an ugly expression on her face. "With such conditions for you, this isn't considered bullying you, right?" "Not considered bullying?" Indeed, it couldn't be considered bullying, because this was no longer something that could be described as bullying. It was complete and utter contempt. Chapter 673. Not doing anything for 10 minutes and allowing others to attack? As long as she could leave a trace on his body, even if it was just a tear on his clothes or a strand of his hair, she would lose? Moreover, she would only make 1 move after 10 minutes. After 1 move, if the opponent could still stand, would it still be considered a loss? No matter how one looked at it, it did not seem like she had a chance of winning. However, Noah still said these words. What did that prove? This proved that Noah believed that even if he stood still and allowed Theodora to attack him, she wouldn't be able to leave a single mark on his body. She wouldn't even be able to damage a single strand of his hair. It also proved that in Noah's opinion, 1 move was enough to deal with Theodora. If this wasn't contempt, then what was? Theodora's expression had completely sunk, and it was even a little unsightly. "Are you insulting me?" "Insulting me? A pure-blooded superior demon, and a blood relative of the current demon king Beelzebub? Do you think I'm insulting you?" Noah could not help but laugh, but there was no smile in his eyes. "Since you can casually insult others and even use the word mere to describe the person you intend to propose to, there's nothing wrong with others insulting you, right? Or do you think I'm just a mere person?" Theodora gritted her teeth. but she seemed to be holding back something and smiled slightly. In that case, as the God Slayer and the Red Dragon Empress, your word should count, right? Of course. Noah smiled coldly. Although I've made a considerable concession, it's really disgusting to hand Isha over to someone like you. So let me participate in it personally. Otherwise, it'll be too uncomfortable. If Theodora's words just now were to treat Isha as an object, then Noah's words were to show that he did not take Theodora seriously at all. No matter what, I'm still a superior demon, and a blood relative of the current demon king Beelzebub. Even if you're in existence on par with gods and demon kings, I can't remain indifferent. Diodora put on a fake smile, but her eyes were filled with murderous intent. You said that you can't do anything in 10 minutes. That's right. Noah, who clearly sensed the killing intent in Diodora's eyes, curled his lips. Even if your goal is to kill me, I will not make a move within 10 minutes. After 10 minutes, I will only make one move. I will not go back on my word. After receiving Noah's assurance, a hypocritical gentleness reappeared on Diodora's face. Meanwhile, the group of demon higher-ups above sneered in their hearts. Even if Noah was the God Slayer and the strongest Red Dragon Emperor in history, wasn't it too arrogant to allow his opponent to attack him for 10 minutes? Diodora wasn't a small fry. She was a pure-blooded superior demon. Even a demon king would be seriously injured if he allowed a superior demon to attack freely within 10 minutes without defending or dodging. Therefore, the higher-ups who had just been humiliated by Noah were gloating and watching this bet with the mentality of watching a show. Lord Noah. Labelle was a little anxious. Teacher. Isha also clenched her hands worriedly. On the contrary, Lise and the other girls who had witnessed the battle between Noah and Korkabor were relieved. Even Sazax and Achuka, who were sitting above, could not help but laugh and shake their heads. How cunning! Hearing Sazax and Achuka's words, Seraphil and Philibium were puzzled. Cunning? Seraphil asked curiously. What's cunning? Well, Sazax smiled meaningfully. Watch carefully, and you will know. At this moment, all the demons in the vast venue had retreated to both sides of the wall, emptying the space. Noah and Diodora stood opposite each other. One was just standing there naturally without any action, while the other's body was obviously tense, but there was always a smile on her face. That smile might be gentle in the eyes of those who did not know, but in the eyes of those who just knew Diodora's character, it was extremely hypocritical. Then, Diodora opened a pair of eyes full of murderous intent and coldness. I won't hold back. As soon as she said that, the hypocritical smile on Diodora's face began to turn ferocious. Her robe trembled slightly, and a strong surge of mana burst out of her body. In the blink of an eye, the entire venue was shrouded in mana fluctuations. Feeling the powerful mana from Diodora, whether it was Lise, Canna, or the other demons of the new generation, all of their expressions froze. This Diodora, Lise said solemnly with some surprise. Is she that strong? No, as far as I know, the previous Diodora shouldn't have this level of mana. Canna frowned. Diodora's mana is already much stronger than ordinary superior demons, almost close to the most superior demons. She shouldn't have this level of strength. Not only Lise and Canna, but the rest of the demons who more or less knew about Diodora, were also surprised. In the venue, due to the magic power surging from Diodora's body, the atmosphere around her was in a bit of chaos. Just like Canna said, Diodora's mana was already much stronger than ordinary superior demons, almost close to the most superior demons. However, in the face of this considerable mana, Noah only glanced at it indifferently. Stop showing off. Hurry up and make your move. The countdown has begun. With a smile on her face, Diodora's eyes became more and more violent. That's why I won't hold back. The magic power surging around Theodora began to surge violently. A moment later, the whistling mana rapidly condensed into a gorgeous magic array in front of Diodora's palm, with rich mana rolling in it. In the next moment, a gust of wind made of pure mana emerged on the magic array, spinning like a vortex, and then suddenly spread out. After a while, it expanded to more than 10 meters wide. Lise, Canna, and the other demons who saw this scene with their own eyes had a change of expression. In the end, Diodora's power seemed to be above their expectations. Take this. Diodora had a smug and sinister smile on her face after creating such a fierce mana storm with her own power. Don't dodge. At that moment, the mana on Diodora's body vibrated, and the huge mana storm immediately swept toward Noah with a sharp whistling sound. Looking at the mana storm that was rolling toward him, Noah's expression was calm from beginning to end, but there was a hint of mockery in his eyes. In the next moment, the mana storm mixed with an almost terrifying force fell on Noah's body. Boom! There wasn't even a moment of stalemate. The magic storm suddenly exploded where Noah was standing, bringing about a violent explosion that shook the entire venue. A circle of shockwaves spread out from the explosion site, like a violent storm, blowing up. Almost at the same time, a crystal-like barrier flickered and blocked all the aftermath of Diodora's attack inside the barrier, preventing it from affecting the surrounding people. Such a fierce attack made the higher-ups of the demons look at each other and smile. I didn't expect the kid from the Astaroth family to be so strong. This attack is enough to rival the highest-level demon, right? He took the full blow of the highest-level demon without defending or dodging. Even gods and demon kings would be injured, right? In the barrier, Diodora, who confirmed that she had hit the target, couldn't help but laugh out loud. In terms of power alone, this is enough to rival the attack of the highest-level demon. Even if you are a god or demon king powerhouse, after taking this attack, I'm afraid. Before Diodora could finish her sentence, the scene in front of her made her smile freeze on her face. In a gust of wind, the violent mana storm gradually dispersed. Inside, a figure slowly appeared in front of everyone's eyes, causing many people to widen their eyes in disbelief. Paw. With a soft patting sound, Noah patted his clothes in the wind as if dust was stuck on his body. He looked up at Diodora and suddenly smiled. So what? Chapter 674. Impossible. When Noah, who was completely unscathed and whose clothes were not in a mess, reappeared in her field of vision, the disgusting smile on Diodora's face finally disappeared. What was left was the same disbelief as the surrounding demons. That was my all-out attack, comparable to the attack of the highest-level demon. Even if it was an opponent of the same level as gods and demon kings, if they did not dodge or defend, it was absolutely impossible for them to be unscathed. That's all you want to say? Noah cast his gaze directly on Diodora. 10 minutes will pass in minutes and seconds. Damn it. Only then did Diodora realize the severity of the situation. She couldn't care less about anything else. She raised her palm, and the violent mana immediately formed a gust of wind again, converging into a tornado. At first, it was only the size of an arm, but after a while, the tornado of mana skyrocketed and turned into a gigantic tornado in the blink of an eye, as though it was a physical tornado. Since one attack is not enough, then I'll keep attacking. I don't believe that 10 minutes of continuous attacks won't leave any scars on your body. As Diodora shouted in a slightly inflated voice, the tornado of magic power whistled and spun in the space, continuously pulling out the stone bricks on the ground and sucking them into it. Then the violent magic power twisted them into stone fragments that filled the sky. It had to be said that Diodora was indeed quite amazing for a new generation demon to be able to use this level of power. Even the higher-ups admitted that Diodora's attack was comparable to that of the highest-level demons in terms of power. Even if Diodora's strength had not reached the level of the highest-level demons, she was far stronger than the new generation of higher-level demons, and even the higher-ups of the higher-level demons present. In the eyes of the gods and demon kings, this power was not something that could be ignored. However, Noah just watched quietly, and his expression did not change from beginning to end. In the eyes of Diodora and the higher-ups of the demons, this calmness became real pressure. No, I can't lose in such a situation. Diodora seemed to be comforting herself, and her expression was a little sinister. With a wave of Theodora's hand, a huge mana tornado swept towards Noah with a violent whistling sound. Wherever the storm passed, the stone bricks on the ground below were all broken, and a wasteland was forcibly scraped out. With the protection of the barrier, The surrounding demons were not affected by the powerful attack. However, when they clearly sensed the powerful aura and mana within it, many demons couldn't help but gulp. Immediately after, the violent magic power tornado descended like a python that intended to swallow Noah into its stomach. With a twist, it covered Noah's figure. Boom! A loud explosion resounded in the air above the entire venue. A terrifying power was crazily released, causing the barrier to ripple slightly at this moment. It's not over yet. Diodora's face was sinister. She stretched out both hands, and the violent mana surging on her body quickly gathered in her palms under her control. It rolled in the two rotating magic arrays, forming high-speed rotating mana light bullets. With the violent sound of wind, the mana light bullets rubbed against the air and blasted out from the two magic arrays set up by Diodora like raindrops. Bang 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 bang. The mana light bullets formed a storm-like attack, sweeping in the direction of the mana tornado that had yet to dissipate. They fell into it one by one, causing a series of explosions, violent waves and intense flames. Ha 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 ha. Die die die. Diodora seemed to have forgotten that there were spectators around her, and finally exposed her true nature completely. She vented the mana light bullets in front of her like a madman, mercilessly attacking Noah, causing explosions and flames to constantly shake the barrier. That scene was simply like a battlefield filled with artillery fire. The dense flames and impact shook the barrier slightly, and even the entire venue was a little shaken. Such a violent attack and power made all the demons present stare at the scene inside the barrier. They didn't even blink their eyes. Labelle had already turned her head away, unable to bear to watch anymore. Although Aisha did not say anything, she clenched her hands tightly and placed them in front of her chest, looking like she was about to cry and praying for Noah. Even Leah's and the other girls who knew about Noah's uniqueness became solemn, and their hearts were faintly in their throats. It was not because of anything else, but because that kind of attack made it impossible for anyone present to really ignore it. This included the other two demon kings, except for Sazax and Achuka, who were surpassers. Is it really going to be okay? Perhaps because Noah had stood up for her sister, and because she did not regard him as an outsider, Seraphil completely treated Noah as one of her own people, and she was a little worried. It's not a problem if we dodge or defend against that kind of continuous attack, but if we don't dodge or defend, even we will be seriously injured, won't we? The lazy Philibium glanced at Sazax and Achuka, who were unperturbed. It seems that we don't need to worry. Undoubtedly, Diodora was a member of the superior pure-blooded demon, and she was also from Achuka's family, but almost all of the four demon kings were on Noah's side. Diodora, who did not know all this, just crazily unleashed her magic power and continuously attacked, causing explosions to resound throughout the venue. Unknowingly, 10 minutes had passed. However, Diodora was still unleashing her attacks, and had no intention of stopping at all. Until a certain moment in the barrier, Diodora suddenly knelt on the ground on one knee, and the magic circle in her palm dissipated all of a sudden, and she panted violently. The powerful magic power in her body that even Leah's and the others were amazed by was now pitifully weak. Theodora had actually exhausted all of her magic power from her attacks. Ha! Ha ha! Despite that, Diodora did not care about her empty body and panting violently, and laughed out loud. Now you're done for even if you don't die. As the saying went, the onlooker sees the game clearly, and the player is confused. Although Diodora did not notice it, the higher-ups of the demons had already discovered it with shock. In the barrier, inside the dense flames, there was an aura that did not fluctuate at all from beginning to end, and was still as powerful as ever. All of a sudden, the entire venue fell into a dead silence. Under such circumstances, Diodora finally noticed that something was wrong. She raised her head bit by bit, and looked at the center of the dense flames in front of her. Then her pupils constricted. Whoosh! A figure appeared in the flames that were rolling like waves. His footsteps were still clear as he gradually walked out of it. It was as if he had walked for an eternity. After a long time, his body was filled with wisps of smoke, but he was still unscathed. Even his hair and clothes were not messed up. Only then did he appear in front of everyone. 17 minutes. A calm and deep voice slowly echoed in the surroundings. Attacking continuously for 17 minutes without stopping. Your magic power is indeed impressive, but unfortunately, it still can't reach the realm of a god. Diodora's face was already distorted due to shock, and she even slumped to the ground. Looking at the expressionless Noah who was walking toward her step by step, her body began to tremble. Impossible, impossible. Even if you can reach the same level as a god and demon king, how can you be unscathed after enduring such continuous attacks without dodging or defending? You must have used some method to dodge or defend. You must be cheating. No matter what, you're still a superior demon. Even if you lose, please lose with dignity. You're simply a disgrace to the entire demon world. Noah continued to walk toward Diodora and sneered. Fine, I'll let you know why you lost. Let me tell you, since the day I killed the god, my physique has changed. I have an extremely strong resistance. Apart from direct physical attacks, unless it's an attack that reaches the level of a god, all mystical powers will be nullified by my body. Everyone was shocked. Chapter 675. Mystical powers that don't reach the realm of gods are all nullified. Apart from those who were in the know, the rest of the people who learned about it for the first time took a full minute or so to truly understand the meaning of this information. Hence, amidst the silence that pervaded the place, the demons looked at each other one after another, and there was only shock in their eyes. Although even gods and demon kings could not ignore Theodora's attack if it was not dodged or defended, it was completely different from an attack that reached the realm of gods. If it did not reach the realm of gods, or if it was a power that was effective against gods, then it would all be nullified. In other words, no matter how much Theodora's attack surpassed that of an ordinary superior demon, or even reached the level of a demon king, as long as it did not reach the realm of gods, it would not be able to leave a single trace on Noah's body even if it was given 10 days to attack freely, let alone 10 minutes. Now, everyone present finally understood why Noah would make such a concession. It was not that Noah was too arrogant, but that this physique was destined to lead to such an outcome. There's actually such a physique. There's such a thing too. So that's how it is. This is the Godslayer. The gazes of the high-ranking demons that looked at Noah could no longer be filled with ridicule and self-respect. There was only shock and fear left. After all, no matter how high and mighty they were, most of these demons were superior demons, and some of them were even weaker than Theodora. And if apart from gods and existences that could rival gods could not do anything to Noah, how could these superior demons do anything to Noah? Coupled with that foul physique, the high-ranking demons present finally understood what level of power Noah had, and were all speechless. On the other hand, Labelle, who had been worried just now, was overjoyed. Amazing, Lord Noah actually has such a physique. That's amazing. Beside them, Isha nodded repeatedly, almost crying tears of joy. Even Leah and the others smiled. From the very beginning, I noticed that your magic power is stronger than that of ordinary superior demons. So, you must be the type that is good at using magic power to attack, right? Ignoring Theodora, who was stunned by this fact, Noah slowly walked towards Theodora, as if he was taking a stroll in the courtyard. But no matter how good you are at using magic to attack, your power is still not at the level of a god. You're also not like Leah's, whose magic carries the attribute of destruction. Even if you're not as powerful as a god, you can still hurt a god. Your power isn't at the level of a god, and you don't have a special power that can hurt even a god. From the very beginning, you have no chance of winning against me. Otherwise, do you think I would use Isha as a stake in a boring bet? Noah smirked. If you had the guts to come up and punch me, you might have a chance of winning. Unfortunately, in the end, you didn't have the guts to get close to me. Now the magic power that you thought was great is useless. You must be very happy, right? After saying that, Noah's voice turned cold all of a sudden. Of course you still have a chance of winning. As long as you can withstand a blow from me, victory will be yours. As soon as he finished speaking, a terrifying pressure began to slowly spread from Noah's body. So I won't be merciful. The heavy pressure immediately covered the entire venue. Everyone present, except for the 4 demon kings, felt as if their bodies were suddenly pressed down by something extremely heavy. Their hearts skipped a beat, and their shoulders sank. They felt as if their bodies had become much heavier, and it was difficult for them to move. On the other hand, Diodora, who was specifically targeted by the pressure that pervaded the entire arena, slumped to the ground. While looking at Noah with an extremely horrified expression, she shifted her buttocks and retreated without caring about her image. At the same time, she yelled loudly, "Don't come over! Don't come over!" At this moment, not only could Theodora no longer maintain her previous hypocritical and gentle image, but she could not even maintain the dignity of a pure-blooded demon. This made many demons' faces extremely ugly. Theodora, who did not notice that the gazes looking at her had begun to become contemptuous, was still screaming, "Do you know who I am? I'm a pure-blooded superior demon, and I'm the blood relative of the current demon king Beelzebub. You're just a human. Don't come near me." Such a performance and such words were simply ugly to the extreme. Achuka's expression had become emotionless, as if the ugly guy below was just a stranger. She was quite cold. As for the eyes of Liath and the others, they had completely turned into disgust. Even I want to laugh at myself for being so serious with a guy like you for so long. Noah's eyes were cold. "Let's get rid of you quickly. You're too ugly." Wait. Don't you want that nun? Here. I'll give it to you." The excessive fear finally crushed Theodora's heart, causing her to cry out. "Not just Aisha. My dependents. I'll give you all the nuns I've raised in captivity." This sentence not only stunned the surrounding people, but also made Noah's footsteps stop slightly and frown. "Your dependents? The nuns you've raised in captivity? That's right. My dependents are all nuns from the church." Theodora shouted desperately as if she was hugging her last life-saving straw. They were originally extremely devout believers, or women who had a close relationship with the church headquarters. They were all famous nuns and saintesses from all over the world. After I forcefully obtained them, they became my dependents. Although I've already used them once, they'll definitely satisfy you. For a moment, the people present couldn't believe what they had just heard. Aisha, Genova, and Irina all widened their eyes in shock. Noah's eyes gradually focused, and the way he looked at Theodora began to change. "So, all your dependents are nuns that you forcefully seduced?" "Yes, that's right." Theodora seemed to think that Noah was moved by her. She nodded repeatedly and began to self-destruct regardless of everything. "If you think it's not enough, I can still find more for you. I'm the best at this kind of thing. You got Aisha thanks to me. For this reason, let me go." "Got Aisha thanks to you?" Noah's heart flashed with a hint of surprise. "Ha! Aisha," the person involved, was at a loss. The next moment, the truth that came out from Theodora's mouth made Aisha sluggish. "I was the one who got Aisha expelled by the church." Theodora's loud voice resounded throughout the venue. "My favorite thing is to seduce the nuns of the church to fall, and then take them for myself. I also found Aisha by chance. I also heard from a person who was very familiar with the sacred gear, that her sacred gear had the effect of healing even demons, so I deliberately hurt myself and deliberately let the clergy of the church see the scene of her healing me, causing her to be expelled by the church." It was as if a bolt from the blue had struck her head. Aisha felt as if her mind had gone blank with a loud bang. Noah clenched his fists almost subconsciously, and his voice lowered little by little. "In other words, Aisha's expulsion by the church was all planned by you? I originally planned to turn Aisha into my dependence after she was killed by the fallen angel, but she surrendered to you, and that's why she came to your side." Theodora did not notice the change in Noah at all, and was still shouting self-righteously. "So, you got Aisha thanks to me. You have to thank me." In Theodora's heart, perhaps she had never thought about what Aisha was to Noah, because in Theodora's opinion, it was just a hobby that suited her for a moment of fun. Therefore, Theodora said these words as a matter of course, and she also thought that it was a matter of course. Bastard! Liaz and her entourage were enraged. Aisha lowered her head, and tears fell from her face. Chapter 676. At this moment, Noah only felt a strong emotion surging violently in his heart. Especially when he saw Isha crying. The surging emotion in Noah's heart erupted directly. Although he hadn't known Isha for a long time, Isha's kind and naive personality had already made Noah treat her as one of his own. And until now, Noah had not forgotten what kind of situation Isha was in when she had no choice but to rely on him. She had only seen his face once, and she did not know anything about him at all. The kind and innocent Isha was forced to such a desperate situation that even Noah, who met her for the first time, had some killing intent toward the dead god, and even annihilated Laneri and the other fallen angels. Now Theodora was saying that he was the one who had planned all of this? Just because Diodora likes to play with the nuns of the fallen church? Noah did not know how to describe his emotions at this time. The only thing he was sure of was that Diodora, who only made Noah feel a little uncomfortable before, completely made Noah's displeasure disappear at this moment. Because there was no need to be displeased anymore. Boom. Like a sharp blade. A magic power so sharp that it seemed to be able to cut people into thousands of pieces soared from Noah's body, instantly enveloping the entire world. Led by Sazax, Seraph, Achuka, and Felubium, all the demons present felt suffocated. Wadash. Leah's, Kana, and the superior demons also felt their hearts suddenly shrink, and even breathing became difficult. Pa 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 pa. Some of the weaker demons knelt on the ground as if they were heavily pressed down by something, and their faces were full of sweat. As for Diodora, who was facing the terrifying magic power that surged from Noah, she was completely stupefied. Her mouth opened and closed like a goldfish, and her whole body trembled. Her complexion paled, and fear filled her face. Looking at Noah, who was standing in front of her with his head lowered and his bangs covering his expression, Diodora's lips trembled, and she could only squeeze out 2 words from her throat. Spare me. These were the last words that Diodora left in this world. The gorgeous magic array rotated in front of Noah, and like the muzzle of a cannon, it aimed at Theodora. An astonishing amount of mana surged out of the array, and gradually converged into a ray of light. Amidst the tragic cries, the body of Diodora, who was sitting on the ground, was directly drowned by the light of magic power from the gorgeous magic formation, and she disappeared in an instant. Boom! With a loud noise, the light of magic power fell on the ground of the entire venue, digging up the soil, smashing the rock plates, and stirring up a violent aftershock that shook in all directions. It hit the barrier, causing it to tremble and even crack. The new generation of demons watching from the sidelines were completely stunned by the scene in front of them. The senior demons sitting on the high platform all stood up involuntarily, and many of them even exclaimed, He killed Diodora. The next master of the Astaroth family was killed by the Godslayer. Amidst the exclamations of the senior demons, Sazax, Seraph, Achuka, and Felubium also had solemn expressions. This time they were in big trouble. The next master of a superior pureblood demon noble was killed just like that? And she was killed by a human? Even if this person was a Godslayer, and a red dragon emperor, directly killing the next master of a demon noble was destined to be a matter that could not be resolved peacefully. Not to mention the 4 demon kings, even Leah's and the others understood what the consequences of Noah's actions would be. They were all shocked, including Isha, who was in tears. He actually dares to do this. He's simply looking down on us. He's provoking the entire demon world. Some demons with extremely strong self-esteem had already completely forgotten what level of strength Noah had because of the heat of the moment, and they shouted one after another. However, in the next moment, Noah raised his head, and his dark and deep eyes were filled with unprecedented hostility. He swept his gaze across the senior demons, making them feel as if they were being stared at by some ferocious beast. Their hearts turned cold, their scalps tingled, and they all shut their mouths. To be honest, Noah had a very good impression of demons because of his relationships with Leah's, Kana, Sazax, Seraph, and the others. However, at this moment, Noah really felt disgusted with the so-called demons from the bottom of his heart. Of course, this was only directed at those senior demons. These senior demons only knew that a pureblood superior demon had died in the hands of Noah, but did they ever think about the reason why this demon was killed? Even if they did, they probably did not care, right? After all, in the eyes of these extremely pedantic pureblood demons who had lived for who knew how long, a nun of the former church who had reincarnated as a low-level demon was not as important as a pureblood superior demon. Even though they knew that Diodora had toyed with Isha's life like that, these demons did not understand the reason for Noah's killing intent, and were still clamoring. Under such circumstances, Noah did not intend to talk too much nonsense with these so-called senior demons. He turned around, held Isha's hand, and left without hesitation while she was still in a daze with 2 lines of tears on her cheeks. Isha, Genova and Irina followed him without hesitation. On the other hand, Liaz, Junai, Label, and Kiba Yuta were clearly mindful of the situation. They bowed at the 4 demon kings, turned around, and quickly chased after them. The entire venue fell into an extremely oppressive atmosphere. Everyone looked at the deep pit in the middle of the venue where Diodora was buried and completely disappeared, and were speechless for a long time. Sigh. Achuka sighed with some complicated feelings. Achuka. Sazax opened his mouth, but after calling Achuka he did not know what to say. There was no other way. The dead person was Achuka's blood relative after all. Although Achuka seemed to be on Noah's side from the beginning to the end, that was also because he did not expect Diodora to dig her own grave, right? Now that Diodora was dead, and she died in the hands of Noah, Sazax did not know if Achuka regretted not stopping the bet, so he could only choose to remain silent. Seraph was at a loss for what to do. What should we do now? Noah killed Diodora, and in front of the 4 demon kings and the entire upper echelons of the demon world. Presumably, when they came back to their senses, there should be a lot of prideful demons who would start to cause trouble, right? No matter what, there's definitely going to be trouble. The usual laziness on Philibium's face had disappeared. However, the other party is the Godslayer and the Red Dragon Emperor. We can't really become enemies with him. Sazax nodded gravely. It seems that we can only suppress the demon's dissatisfaction. The problem is the Astaroth family. Don't worry, Diodora is not the only bloodline in the Astaroth family, Achuka said faintly. So I'll explain to the Astaroth family. The 4 demon kings all nodded slowly, and instantly decided on a plan to deal with this matter. From this aspect, it could be seen that even if they did not act like demon kings in private, Sazax and his party were still demon kings after all. They were very decisive and wise. It was believed that the upper echelons of any force would not make such a stupid decision to become enemies with someone who could be on the same level as gods and demon kings for the sake of a superior demon. In particular, Sazax and Achuka, who had accompanied Noah in training for a whole month and witnessed the full extent of Noah's current strength, understood this even more clearly. In the end, becoming enemies with Noah was an unnecessary and stupid thing to do. Therefore, almost every demon king was inclined to minimize this matter and turn it into nothing. At this time, Seraph, who inadvertently looked in the direction of the deep pit, was startled and cried out in surprise. "What's that?" Chapter 677. Phew. After walking out of the venue, Noah heaved a heavy sigh of relief when he saw the sky that was as clear as a lake, releasing all the depression in his heart. Although there was still some anger left, Diodora had been completely annihilated by Noah without leaving a single hair behind. He believed that this anger would gradually dissipate in the near future, right? It was really ironic. Diodora had tried her best, but she couldn't even make Noah lose a single hair. Noah, on the other hand, made Diodora disappear with just a casual strike. Not even a strand of her hair was left behind. There was nothing more ironic than this. Sensei, Isha, who walked out of the venue with Noah, seemed to have recovered a little. Even though there were still traces of tears on her face, her expression was no longer as sad as before. Aisha is really strong. Noah couldn't help but pat Aisha's head. You were almost played with by that scumbag for your entire life. I thought you would never recover. There's no such thing. Isha's expression was a little gloomy, but she still smiled calmly. Although I feel very sad, I don't regret saving him at that time. Otherwise, I wouldn't have met Sensei and the minister. Just as Isha finished speaking, Junai, Genova, Irina, Label, Kiba Yudo, and the others all walked out of the venue's entrance. Well said, Aisha. Leah stepped forward and hugged Aisha gently, stroking her head lovingly. It's Isha's misfortune to be targeted by that guy, but it's also because of that Isha came to our side. That's our fortune. Don't worry, Isha. Genova held her hand tightly and said with unusual firmness. From now on, we will protect Isha. We will never let her be hurt like that again. Everyone. Isha's tears fell again. Of course, this time it wasn't because of sadness, but because of happiness and gratitude. If God closes a door on you, will he leave a window open for you? Noah stroked Isha's head. From this point of view, it must be Aisha's piety that moved even the dead God. That's why he protected you from falling into the hands of someone like Theodora, and came to our side, right? That's right. Hearing Noah's words, Irina's eyes shone as she held Noah's hand at once. She was the most devout believer in God. As expected of teacher, well said. Isha and Genova's eyes also lit up, as if they had received some kind of revelation. Their faces were pure and holy. As expected, even though the Lord has passed away, we have not been abandoned. My hope has been rekindled. Ah, thank you, Lord. Aisha, Genova, and Irina couldn't help but hold hands in front of their chests and pray. Oh, it was a pity that as demons, once they prayed to God, the system that remained in the heavens would cause harm to the demons. As a result, the three demon girls immediately clutched their heads and cried out after praying to God. Ahaha. Leah's and the others couldn't help but laugh out loud. Seeing this, Noah breathed a sigh of relief. It couldn't be better that Isha wasn't hurt because of Theodora's actions. At this moment, a small magic circle flashed in front of Leah's. A small figure emerged from it and imprinted itself in everyone's eyes. Brother. Leah's reacted. It was Sazak's. Leah's. The small Sazak's voice that emerged from the small magic circle sounded rather serious. Noah is with you, right? Let him come to us. Hearing that, Leah's and the other girls all fell silent. Presumably, Leah's and the others thought that Sazak's was looking for Noah to negotiate with Noah about Theodora. However, Noah heard a hint of something wrong from Sazak's serious tone. Although Noah had killed Theodora in front of all the high-ranking demons, greatly provoking all of them, with Noah's sharp political acumen, he could easily infer that in the long run, Sazak's and the others were unlikely to become enemies with him. A Godslayer and the Crimson Dragon Emperor, for a pure-blooded superior demon. So, even if he intended to negotiate with him about Theodora, Sazak's tone shouldn't be so serious. Noah immediately spoke. Sazak's, did something happen? Something did happen. Sazak's nodded. Anyway, come to us first. We'll talk about the details when the time comes. I understand. Noah pondered for a moment and nodded. It was only then that Sazak's nodded and disappeared before Leah's eyes along with the small communication magic circle. At this point, Leah's and the others knew that Sazak's wasn't trying to pursue the matter about Theodora. An accident really did happen. Teacher, you go. Leah's hesitated for a moment before making a decisive decision. I want to accompany Aisha. Teacher, please go about your business, Aisha said seriously. I'm fine now. Well, remember to tell me if there's anything. Noah patted Aisha's head before turning around and returning to the hall under the gaze of Leah's and the others. Not long after Noah entered the hall, Eulifia, who had been hiding somewhere, appeared in front of Noah and led Noah to a conference room. Sazak's, Seraphil, Achuka, and Philibium were sitting around the conference table. When Noah entered, they cast their gazes in his direction. Among them, Achuka's expression was obviously a little helpless. I thought that after what happened just now, you wouldn't appear in front of us so calmly anymore. Why not? Noah sighed. Achuka, I don't think I did anything wrong, so I won't apologize to you. It's okay. I know that Theodora brought it upon herself. Achuka laughed bitterly. Although it was sudden, even I didn't expect you to suddenly kill her like that. Little Noah, you're being naughty. Seraphil put her hands on her hips and rebuked. Because of you, we're going to have to face the complaints of those uncles and demons. Sigh. Philibium sighed very obviously. It's really troublesome. No matter what, that was a little too extreme, Sizak said solemnly. Although you're very powerful, you're still just one person. Facing an entire force, you're still a little powerless. It's better for you to be careful. Of course, Noah understood the principle that human strength was ultimately limited. However, this principle was completely useless when it came to Noah. Even if it was a war with the entire demon world, Noah was not afraid at all. Not to mention, with Noah's physique, apart from Sizak's and Achuka, the other demons could only hurt Noah with a special destructive magic power like Leah. Even if the entire demon world charged at him, he did not need to be afraid. Don't forget that in addition to authority, Noah still had the trump card of the 3 great spells, Fairy Tale. With Noah's current magic power, as long as he smashed down with Fairy Law, who knew how many demons would die? In terms of large-scale attacks, the Fairy Law was even more effective than the authority that Noah used. Therefore, numbers were meaningless in front of Noah. Even if he really went against the demon world, Noah was not afraid. However, no demon king had any intention of going against Noah. Even Sizak only said that he needed to be careful. As one could imagine, Noah's influence was quite great. Therefore, Noah sat down between Sizak and Seraphil and looked around. Something must have happened for you to call me here, right? Sizak immediately looked at the other 3 demon kings before looking at Noah. Actually, we found something at the place where you killed Theodora. Chapter 678. Actually, in the place where you killed Diodora, we found something. With such a sentence, Sizak held out his hand. In Sizak's hand, a small gemstone-like enchantment was quietly fluctuating there. And inside the small enchantment, a group of things like a black snake was constantly twisting and fluctuating, and connected head to tail. That scene reminded Noah of something. The Ouroboros. Almost at the same time, something in Noah's pocket vibrated, making Noah look at the group of Ouroboros in Sizak's hand. Gradually narrowed his eyes. From the world of the God Slayer, Noah brought out a total of 2 things. One was the Holy Grail that he snatched from Guinevere. The other was the Stone of Gorgon that he got from Athena. Now, because the size of the Holy Grail was not convenient to carry around, Noah put it in the space between worlds. What he carried with him was another thing he brought out from the world of the God Slayer. The Stone of Gorgon. This snake, that belonged to Athena, had previously reacted to the dragon that was born from the essence of the earth in Naples after the destruction of the Pillars of Hera. Now the Stone of Gorgon reacted again, proving that the group of Ouroboros in the enchantment in Sizak's hand was most likely related to snakes. No. It should be said that it was related to the derivative of snakes, the dragon. This was found in the place where I killed Diodora? Noah frowned. You mean this is Diodora's thing? It should be said that this is something in Diodora's body. It was not Sizak who answered Noah, but Achuka. We all think that Diodora put this thing into her body, so it appeared in that place after she was killed by you. Then, when we saw this thing, we understood. Sizak looked straight at Noah. Why is Diodora so much stronger than the average superior demon? Hearing this, Noah was slightly stunned. Could it be that Diodora is so much stronger than ordinary superior demons because of this snake? Actually, not long ago, Theodora didn't have this level of power, Achuka explained. Although Diodora is the next head of the Astaroth family, she is still weaker than Laius, who has destructive magic, let alone reaching the power of a top-tier demon. That's why we were quite surprised to see Diodora launch such a powerful attack on you. Seraphine seemed to be planning to be serious, but in the end, her performance gave people a feeling of cuteness. We thought that Diodora had been hiding her true strength, and planned to make a name for herself after she debuted in the raiding game. However, now it seems that it's not that Diodora has been hiding her true strength, but that she didn't have this level of strength not long ago, Philibium also said. When this snake is implanted into the body, it can increase the user's strength to a certain extent. Diodora should have used it to allow her strength to surpass most of the superior demons, and approach the level of the highest level demons. Then what is this snake? Noah asked. Can it increase the user's strength to a certain extent? Is it the ability of a sacred gear, similar to the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear? No, that's impossible, Sazek rejected directly. Even a Longlness, like the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear, can only temporarily increase the user's power, but Diodora has been using this power all the time. So this can't be the power of a sacred gear. At this point, Sazek suddenly said, "Do you remember when the descendants of the 3 old demon kings, Leviathan, Beelzebub and Asmodeus, attacked us during the tripartite conference?" Noah nodded. He was also a participant in that incident, so naturally he couldn't forget. In fact, those 3 descendants of the demon kings are only descendants of the demon kings after all. Their strength is comparable to that of the top-tier demons, but they haven't reached the level of the demon kings. They dared to directly cause trouble for us, because they have obtained the power comparable to that of the demon kings, Sazek said. At that time, I clearly saw that the 3 descendants of the demon kings all used this snake to increase their strength to the level of the demon kings in one go. Hearing this, Noah immediately understood what Sazek meant. You mean Diodora has contact with Calamity Mass? Calamity Mass. It was a terrorist group that gathered dangerous elements from various forces, intending to bring chaos and destruction to the world. In that group, Wally was also one of the members. Naturally, the 3 descendants of the Demon Kings were also members of Calamity Mass. During the tripartite conference, they attacked Sazek, intending to break the peace treaty, launch a coup, and reclaim the throne of the Demon Kings. Since the 3 descendants of the Demon Kings all used this snake, there was no doubt that Diodora, who also used this snake, had contact with Calamity Mass. Originally, after Diodora obtained the power of this snake, it should have been completely digested by Diodora and integrated into her body. However, after you destroyed it, Diodora left this snake behind, Sazek said seriously. Therefore, we speculate that Theodora had just obtained this snake, not long ago, and her body hadn't completely integrated with the power of the snake, yet. That's why she left the snake, that hadn't completely integrated with her body when she was destroyed. You understand what we mean, right? Achuka revealed her usual flirtatious smile. That is to say, Diodora only obtained this snake recently, and the person who gave her this snake is most likely still in the underworld. Achuka's words directly gave Noah a wonderful feeling in his heart. Sensing this feeling, Noah's eyes first focused, and then suddenly lit up. Noah had experienced this feeling many times. It was a feeling that Noah would only have when the world gave him a hint about the world fragment. This time, Noah finally became serious. Could it be that the world fragment is on the person who gave Diodora this snake? At the thought of this, Noah more or less couldn't sit still, but he forced himself to hold back and looked at Sazek. Why are you telling me this? You've asked the main point. Sazek's face showed a bitter expression. Because if the owner of this snake is really in the underworld, we may have to borrow your power. My power? Noah raised his eyebrows. We can only borrow your power, Achuka said. After all, we alone can't do anything to the owner of this snake. This surprised Noah. Can't do anything? As a surpasser, his strength could definitely be ranked at the top of this world. And Sazek and Achuka, who were ranked in the top 10, couldn't do anything to him? Is this a joke? It's not a joke. As far as we know, there is only one existence who can give power to others, increase the power of others almost forever, and also have such a snake, Sazek said with a solemn expression. It is said to have infinite power, and even the gods are afraid of the strongest dragon in the legends. Infinite power? Isn't that? That's right. He's the one who has the ability to become the strongest existence in this world, the first of the top 10 experts, Sazek said, emphasizing each word. People call him the infinite dragon god, and his name is Orpheus. Sazek looked at Noah. Now, do you know why we can only ask you for help? Noah suddenly fell silent. Orpheus was the strongest person in the world, an existence that was said to have infinite power. In the past, Noah had learned of the existence of such a person from Varley. He didn't expect that such a person was not only likely to be in the underworld, but also to have joined the group of disasters. Most importantly, the world fragment, was also very likely to be with this Orpheus. This is a bit troublesome. Chapter 679. The Underworld. The Jumanli family. Walking in the vast and luxurious corridor, Noah's mind was completely immersed in his own world. Orpheus. He was known as the strongest existence among the ranked experts in this world. After learning of his existence from Varley, Noah had various assumptions about this existence. The most basic assumption was, of course, the strength of the other party. There was no doubt that the strength of this existence, who was known to have unlimited power, was immeasurable. Syzax said that Orpheus was the strongest dragon with the title of Infinite Dragon God, a legendary existence that even the gods feared. Whether in terms of strength or level, Orpheus, who was known as the Dragon God, was above Drake and Erubian, who were sky dragons. Noah had also learned about the ranks of the dragon race from Drake. Putting aside those messy dragons, as far as Noah knew, there were 5 dragons in this world who were known as the 5 Dragon Kings, who could dominate the dragon race. Among these 5 dragon kings, even the weakest one had the power of a demon king. Above the dragon kings were the Red Dragon Emperor and the White Dragon Emperor, who were known as the 2 sky dragons. At the level of sky dragons, ordinary gods and demon kings were no longer a match for them. In fact, Drake and Erubian's strength was indeed enough to be ranked among the top 10 strongest in this world. Then the dragon that was stronger than sky dragons like Drake and Erubian was Orpheus, who was known as the dragon god by the world. It was the highest level dragon that was 1 level higher than the sky dragons that could be ranked in the top 10. One could imagine how strong Orpheus was. When they were at the venue, Syzax had told Noah that Orpheus, as the strongest dragon, symbolized infinity. Therefore, Orpheus could provide his power infinitely, like giving the power of a snake to others, so that others could obtain a certain degree of improvement in power. Therefore, Orpheus' so-called infinite power didn't mean that Orpheus was boundlessly strong and had no limit. Instead, it meant that Orpheus could generate power without limit, just like a perpetual motion machine that had no limit. Noah's magic power was also vast and boundless. However, compared to Orpheus, who truly had infinite power, it was only a drop in the ocean. With such an ability, Orpheus's strength was strong enough to be called the strongest in the world. In this way, even if Syzax and Achuka were surpassers, they could not fight against this existence, and could only ask Noah for help. Of course, because of this incident, Syzax and the others also confirmed that Diodora had been in contact with the mass, who intended to be the enemy of the various forces, and was already considered a traitor of the demons. Regarding Theodora's betrayal, Syzax expressed that after killing this traitor, the high-level demons had no reason to find trouble with Noah anymore. Instead, they had to thank Noah for taking action, which would definitely make those high-level demons feel aggrieved to death. As for the matter of Orpheus, Noah really had to intervene. Putting aside the fact that the 2 demon kings, Syzax and Achuka, had taken a whole month off to accompany Noah in his special training, which allowed Noah to take the first solid step of using multiple avatars at the same time. The possibility that Orpheus might have clues about the world fragment on his body made Noah have to intervene. I just don't know how strong the legendary dragon god that even gods fear is, Noah muttered, shook his head, and pulled his thoughts back. No matter what, if Orpheus really has a world fragment on him, then even if it's a little reckless, I have to get in touch with it. After making up his mind, Noah stopped thinking about it and quickened his pace. It did not take long for him to arrive in front of Kitten's room. However, just as he arrived in front of Kitten's door, Noah's figure suddenly stopped, and he suddenly stretched out a hand and directly opened the door of Kitten's room. Bang! The violent action directly caused the door to emit a loud bang. Whoosh! At the same time, a black shadow shot out of Kitten's room in the direction of the window. The speed was so fast that Noah could barely see an afterimage, and then it flew out of the window. And on the bed in Kitten's room, the petite figure that should have been lying on it had disappeared. Seeing this scene in front of him, how could Noah not understand what had happened? There was an intruder. Moreover, it was an intruder who had set his eyes on the kitten and kidnapped it. Will I let you escape? Looking at the afterimage that flew out of the window, Noah raised his hand, and a strong magic power suddenly fluctuated in front of his palm and condensed at a shocking speed. Finally, it turned into a gorgeous magic array. Buzz! In the next moment, the magic power in the magic array converged into a huge beam of light, and it burst out with a sound of vibration in the air. The size of the beam was just right to fit the window of Kitten's room, and it shot out of the window and caught up with the afterimage in front of it. However, in the face of the amazing magic light beam, the afterimage in front of it suddenly became blurred. Bang! In the blink of an eye, the huge beam of light caught up with the afterimage, and in the midst of an explosion, it ignited a fire all over the sky. And at this moment, above the explosion of fire, a figure suddenly appeared without the slightest warning, and with a shake of the body, it once again flew away into the distance. Noah, who witnessed this scene with his own eyes, had a gloomy expression. Noah's outstanding sensing ability allowed him to sense that at the moment the figure blurred, the aura on the figure suddenly dropped abruptly. It was as if the figure had split into two, and an identical aura appeared in another direction. Is it an illusion or a substitute? Without the slightest hesitation, Noah's body crouched, and his feet exerted force. His body immediately shot out of the window like a bullet, and with a sharp sound of breaking air, he chased after the almost completely invisible intruder. Whoosh! A gust of wind blew in his face, and it was like a knife cutting his body, causing him to feel a slight pain. After flying out of the window, Noah landed on the crown of a large tree, and looked at the back of the intruder, who was almost out of his sight. In his heart, the outline of the stone plate connected to the 10 avatars suddenly turned, and pointed to the phoenix. Fear the one with wings. Evil people and strong people, all fear me with wings. My wings will bring you a curse, and evil people will not be able to hit me. In this moment, Noah entered a world that others could not enter. It was a world where all external factors were eliminated, and Noah's own time was accelerated. Once he entered this world, Noah would be able to obtain a speed that surpassed everything, and no one would be able to match his speed. Noah, who was originally standing on the crown of the tree, seemed to have turned into a phantom, like a mirage, and directly disappeared on the spot. In the distance, who knew how far away, the intruder who was holding a petite figure in his arms suddenly had a change in expression. Immediately, in the space in front of the intruder, a figure suddenly flashed out, turned around and lifted a leg, as if waving a whip, and fiercely lashed out in the direction of the intruder. The intruder who had kidnapped the kitten was just about to make a move, but the leg whip that was fiercely lashed out with a swift and fierce sound suddenly disappeared. That was the phenomenon caused by Noah once again activating his god speed, causing his own attack to become an attack that could not be captured. Bang! Amidst the muffled sound, the intruder who was holding the kitten was directly hit by Noah's god speed, as if he had been hit by a truck. His body flew backwards like an arrow from a bow, barely stabilizing his body when he was about to hit the ground. With a spin, he somewhat awkwardly landed on a rock. As soon as he landed on the rock, the intruder's expression changed again, and he did not hesitate to leap backwards and retreat. Swish! The elusive figure appeared at the spot where the intruder was a second ago, and threw a punch, but because the intruder retreated, the punch missed. This time Noah was surprised. Whether it was the previous pursuit or the current attack, the intruder seemed to be able to sense Noah's approach and react. The intruder was actually able to see Noah using god speed. Did this intruder have the same mind's eye that could see through god speed, like Luo Hao and Tony? Chapter 680. Raising his head, Noah looked at the intruder who had kidnapped Kitten for the first time. The intruder, who had retreated, was still holding Kitten. Landing on top of another rock, she also raised her head and met Noah's gaze. It was only at this moment that Noah finally saw the full appearance of the newcomer. What surprised Noah was that the intruder was a girl who looked to be only 17 or 18 years old. She was wearing a black kimono, but a large part of her chest was exposed. The two white thighs of her lower body were also directly exposed to the air. It was as if she was showing off her beauty to everything in the world. At first glance, her figure was no worse than any girl Noah had ever seen. What surprised Noah the most was that this girl, who was full of flirtatious beauty, not only had a pair of black cat ears, she also had 2 cat tails swaying behind her back. That posture was exactly the same as Kitten's. Noah's eyes slowly narrowed. Nicomeda. Hearing this, the cat-eared girl, whose entire body was rippling with flirtatious charm, licked her lips charmingly. That's right, I am the cute and powerful Nicometa Meow. It wasn't just her figure and appearance. The girl's every move, every word, and every action had a special kind of allure. If a man with weak willpower were to see her like this, his soul would probably be taken away by her, right? However, Noah noticed another fact. You are not an ordinary Nicometa. To be able to see through my Godspeed, you must be from the strongest Nicometa race, the Nicometa race's bloodline, right? Only this could explain how she could see through Noah's Godspeed. If she was a Nicometa race's Nicometa race, then even if Noah entered the world of Godspeed, she would be able to sense Noah's ki and react, right? Whether it was her figure or her race, she was exactly the same as Kitten. Noah remembered what Labelle had said about Kitten's past. You are Kitten's older sister? Haha, the flirtatious cat-eared girl immediately laughed. Her laughter was exceptionally alluring. You can call me Black Song. Thank you for taking care of my sister. True enough. This Nicometa Hegu was Kitten's older sister. That was the guy who had once killed his own master, abandoned the kitten, and became a lost demon. He was the guy who had gone berserk, because he was too strong. Nicometa was very rare to begin with. As for the Nicometa race that could use both immortal arts and demonic arts were on the brink of extinction. At the very least, as far as she knew, apart from the cat girl and her kitten sisters, she had never heard of any other cat elves. Therefore, Noah was almost certain that she was the sister of the kitten that had been devoured by the power. In fact, Noah could indeed feel a trace of evil from the other party's body. Presumably, even if this cat girl wasn't an evil demon who killed without batting an eyelid, she wouldn't be soft-hearted, right? Glancing at the kitten that was quietly lying in Black Song's arms with her eyes closed, Noah's gaze turned cold. Give me the kitten. Noah's words left no room for doubt. In the first place, Noah had been suppressing a ball of fire in his heart, because of what Theodora had done to Isha. Now that Black Song had set her sights on the kitten, how could Noah, who had been suppressing that ball of fire in his heart, not be angry? I don't care what your plans are for suddenly appearing in the underworld, and I don't care how dangerous you are to the demons. If you put down the kitten now, I can still tolerate it a little. Otherwise, I don't think I need to say it, right? Ugh, that's really scary, Meow. Being stared at by Noah's cold eyes. Even Black Song couldn't help but take a step back, the flirtatious smile on her face more or less slowing down. But unfortunately, this is my sister. I won't put her down so easily, Meow. Won't put her down so easily, Noah said sarcastically. Undoubtedly, you abandoned the kitten and left. Now you're saying you won't put her down so easily? Are you trying to make me laugh? That's between us sisters. The smile on Black Song's face finally disappeared completely, and her expression became gloomy. It's none of your business. Noah didn't say anything else, and looked straight at Black Song. The usual calmness in his deep, dark eyes made Black Song's heart tighten. Black Song knew that this was Noah's ultimatum. If she still didn't put the kitten down, then Noah wouldn't be so polite anymore. Because of the matter with Theodora, Noah, who had been suppressing the anger in his heart, completely displayed his dominance. In fact, Black Song was the last descendant of the strongest Nicometa race, the Nicometa race. Her strength was already above the highest level of demons. However, as a Nicometa who could use immortal spells, Black Song clearly felt how powerful Noah's aura was. She knew that she couldn't match Noah by herself no matter what. Black Song clenched her teeth slightly. Who the hell are you? The one who answered this question was not Noah, but another voice that suddenly appeared on the scene. He's Noah Doria, the Godslayer, that has never appeared before. He's also the current Red Dragon Emperor. If you want me to introduce him in more detail, then he's my rival. The moment this sentence sounded, a teleportation magic array appeared next to Black Song like a door. Then, a familiar figure walked out of it and imprinted itself in Noah's eyes. A beautiful silver-haired young man stood next to Black Song. The moment he appeared, it was as if there was no one else in his eyes except for Noah. The corners of his mouth slowly curled up. Should I say long time no see? The person who came was Varley. Varley? Noah was startled, then glanced at Black Song. You're also a member of the disaster squad. I was recently invited to join. Due to Varley's appearance, Black Song's expression once again returned to calmness, and the coquettish smile also returned to his face. I felt that it was quite interesting, so I joined. Black Song is now my teammate. In the words of the demon world, you can be considered as my relative. Varley spread out his hands and said so. So Noah, I won't let you casually attack my relative. Hearing Varley's words, Noah smiled, but there was not the slightest hint of a smile in his eyes. Last time, I let you escape because you didn't cause any harm to the people around me. Varley, if you want to take Kitten away from me, this time, no matter where you escape to, I will dig you out. As soon as he finished speaking, a trace of pressure flashed across Noah's body, proving how much truth there was in Noah's words. Black Song's expression was already somewhat stiff. Even Varley's expression slowly turned serious, and the gaze he looked at Noah became brighter. I can feel that you've become stronger than last time. Noah, you're really worthy of being a strong opponent that I recognize. If this continues, perhaps you'll grow to be stronger than the one I want to defeat the most, or even stronger than any other existence. This really makes me happy. Perhaps it wouldn't be bad to have a second battle with you here. This damn battle maniac, not only did he not treat Noah's strength as a threat at all, but his blood was boiling because of it. Just when Noah thought that Varley would choose to attack before him and directly rush over, Varley's tone suddenly changed. Although I really want to say this, today, I came here just to lead the way for someone. Lead the way. Noah was stunned. What does this mean? As if he saw through Noah's thoughts, Varley suddenly smiled. There's someone who seems to care about you, the God Slayer, and Red Dragon Emperor. So I brought her here to let you two meet. After saying that, Varley raised his head and looked at the sky above him. Noah frowned and also raised his head. Then his expression finally changed. There was no other reason. It was just because a person had appeared there without him knowing. She was as petite as a kitten, with long black hair that reached her waist. She was wearing a dress that exposed her slender limbs. The girl seemed to have been looking at Noah the whole time. When Noah raised his head and their eyes met, she was still staring at Noah intently. Not long after, the girl softly opened her mouth, spitting out silent and short words. Long time no see, Drake. Noah's expression became completely dignified. Chapter 681. Noah had always believed that if someone approached him, unless it was someone who was completely harmless to him, it would be impossible for him to not notice someone approaching him with his outstanding sensory ability. However, this fact was finally overturned today. A petite girl suddenly appeared in midair. Noah did not notice the arrival of this petite girl at all. When exactly did the other party arrive? And when did he appear there? Could it be that she was already there? Noah did not know any of these. His sensory ability that had always been effective was completely ineffective in front of this petite girl. This caused Noah's expression to become more and more serious. From this petite girl, Noah did not feel any hostility, malice, or killing intent. It was as if she did not even have any other emotions. It was as if silence was born from nothingness, and he could not feel anything. Perhaps, it was because of this that Noah's sensory ability was ineffective? However, Noah did not think that this petite girl in front of him was not a threat at all. Although he did not feel any aura, the inexplicable atmosphere surrounding the girl made Noah's heart jump with warning signs. However, other than the warning signs, Noah also had another strange feeling in his heart. This caused Noah's gaze to gradually focus on the petite girl. After a while, Noah finally noticed. An incomplete feather that was emitting a soft white light was floating in the body of the petite girl. That was the world fragment. Noah was secretly surprised in his heart. The world fragment in this world was actually the same as the world fragment in Bio's body in the world of the Night of the Magi. They both existed in the body of a living being? Could it be that this girl in front of him was the same as Bio? A living being that used the world fragment as the core of her life? Just as Noah was thinking of this, the girl did something completely different from Bio, who only had a beast-like spirituality, due to the influence of the world fragment. Long time no see, Drager. The petite girl spat out these short and silent words without any emotion. Drager? Was this girl planning to greet Drake? However, the girl's gaze made Noah feel as if she was sizing him up from head to toe, and not looking for Drake's consciousness that was hidden in the depths of Noah's soul, and had fallen into a deep slumber. Noah immediately said, "As for Drager, it's currently asleep. It won't reply to you." Hearing this, the petite girl shook her head without any hesitation. In the next moment, the petite girl suddenly disappeared. Before Noah could even react, the unique voice that was as silent as the moonlight rang out from behind him. "I have come to see thee." Noah was shocked. He turned around abruptly and looked behind him. There, the petite girl sat cross-legged on a rock and stared at Noah. After a while, she covered her chest. The inexplicable feeling that lingered in my heart told me that I must find someone. When Wally told me about the existence of the Red Dragon Emperor, I knew that the person was thee. Hearing this, the first thing that came to Noah's mind was the world fragment that was lodged in the girl's heart. If what the girl said was true, then the inexplicable feeling that lingered in her heart, the feeling that made her come to find Noah, was probably the influence of the world fragment. Noah didn't know that back then, during the night of the Magi, Bio was also influenced by the world fragment. It made Bio feel like he had received a hint from the world that he must find Noah. This was why when Ouchie Orange appeared and used the contract, he was successfully contracted by her without any resistance. Perhaps, the girl was also influenced by the world fragments that wanted to return to the space between worlds through Noah's hand. That was why she followed this feeling and came to Noah's side. Being able to find the world fragment, Noah was naturally very happy. However, the girl in front of him had no thoughts or thoughts. Like the silent moonlight, she was unfathomably deep. This made Noah's heart filled with vigilance. This was the first time Noah had encountered such a situation where he was completely passive. Therefore, even if the world fragment was in front of him, even if he was shocked by the girl's unfathomable depth, Noah still didn't act rashly. He stared at the petite girl and spoke in a deep voice. "Who are you?" The one who answered Noah's question wasn't the petite girl, nor was it Haegu, who had been silently standing by the side since the petite girl appeared. It was Varley. "Do you still remember the existence that I mentioned before that was ranked number 1? Varley said. "She's Orpheus." Noah had already guessed the identity of the petite girl. After all, among the existences that Noah knew, only the dragon god who claimed to have infinite power could make Noah fall into such a passive situation. And sure enough, the unfathomable petite girl in front of him was the infinite dragon god, Orpheus. He had just learned from Syzax that Orpheus might be in the underworld, and now, Orpheus appeared in front of Noah. It had to be said that even Noah was a little surprised. By the way, if you want to ask me why I'm working with Orpheus, I can also tell you the answer. Varley smiled silently. Orpheus is the leader of the Calamity Squad. The successive situations made Noah's eyes flash with a complicated expression. Phew. Noah could only take a deep breath and let his usual calmness and composure return to him. He met Orpheus' gaze and asked, "Orpheus, what do you think?" Then the famous infinite dragon god and the leader of the Calamity Squad. "What do you want to do by coming to me?" Orpheus lowered her head as if she had fallen into deep thought. After thinking seriously for a while, she shook her head again. "I'm not sure, but I have to come to you. This is the first time I've had this feeling since I was born in the silent world." After saying that, Orpheus' face gradually brimmed with an innocent and romantic smile. This smile made the delicate face of the petite girl even more adorable. However, looking at this smile, Noah's warning signs that had been jumping in his heart instantly rose to the highest point. The next moment, Orpheus said such a sentence. "So I want to bring you back." When this sentence echoed in the entire space, a mist-like light flashed from Orpheus' body and swept in all directions like a wave. In an instant, It covered everything that Noah could see. When the mist-like light shrouded everything in his field of vision, a bad feeling flashed through Noah's heart. This was because Noah could feel that in this mist-like light, not only did he lose his sense of direction, but the auras of Orpheus, Varley, Hagu, and even Kitten had all disappeared within the range of his sensing ability. Moreover, when the mist-like light came into contact with Noah's body, Noah actually felt that his body was being eroded, and his consciousness became a lot more hazy. They hadn't even officially confronted each other, but he was already restrained to this extent by the other party? Noah's heart trembled slightly. With a thought, the vast mana in his body immediately flowed rapidly along his body, causing Noah's body to tremble slightly. A faint light appeared around him like a flame, burning away the mist-like light that was eroding towards him and blocking it outside his body. However, almost at the same time, Noah's heart suddenly trembled again. Without hesitation, Noah used the incarnation of the Dragon Emperor. All evildoers, be afraid of my power. Now I shall obtain the majesty of 10 mountains, the strength of 100 rivers, and the strength of 1,000 giant dragons. The majestic me shall raise the ferocious power to slay dragons. Scale-like gas shook off from Noah's body and covered Noah's entire body. PFFF. In the next second, a slight sound of wind breaking, as if it had pierced through space, entered Noah's ears. A light spike that looked like a snake suddenly appeared from the mist-like light. It was as thick as an arm, but it was as soft as a snake. As it wriggled, it drew a strange arc in the air and shot in Noah's direction. Chapter 682. In front of him was a light that was diffusing and fluctuating like a fog. In Noah's field of vision, there was only such an existence left. However, when the Dragon Emperor's transformation covered Noah's entire body, a ray of light that was like a snake twisting its body suddenly pierced through space. Following the trajectory of space, it drew a strange arc and fell on Noah's body. Padash. The snake-like ray of light hit Noah's chi scales and exploded, turning into a circle of light spots. Noah thought that the dragon-slaying power carried by the Dragon Emperor's transformation had an effect on the legendary dragon god, which was why this attack was neutralized. However, in the next moment, this thought of Noah's disappeared without a trace. The exploding light spots actually covered the air scales around Noah's body amidst the vibrations of space, and they began to shine brightly. At this moment, Noah only felt that his body was being attacked by an ice-cold chill, which constantly surged into Noah's body. Noah's expression suddenly changed slightly. His body tensed up, and a violent magic power surged out of his body. It vibrated and circled around the chi scales, causing Noah's chi scales to light up and shake, scattering the light spots on them. "Thou is very strong." Orpheus' voice reverberated in the void. "But I am undefeatable." After he finished speaking, a light figure suddenly flashed out from the mist-like light that permeated the surrounding space after the snake-like soft light thorns. Like a flash of lightning, it rapidly approached Noah. Facing the ray of light that suddenly appeared and charged without any warning, Noah finally caught a trace of the other party with great difficulty. Clenching his fist, he ruthlessly smashed the ray of light in front of him. At this moment, the ray of light in front of Noah suddenly fluctuated rapidly, turning into a transparent mirror-like light curtain. Caught off guard, Noah's punch did not fall on the incoming ray of light, but directly on the light curtain. Pung dash. The heavy punch fell and heavily smashed on the light curtain. Then Noah's heart suddenly jumped. It was because when Noah's heavy punch landed directly on the light curtain, an equally powerful force immediately rebounded back fiercely, causing a circle of ripples to appear on the surface of the light curtain. Noah, who was caught off guard, was shaken to the point that his arm went numb. He took a few steps back and stabilized his body with great difficulty. Dozens of spiral snake-like light thorns suddenly formed rapidly, with the tip pointing in the same direction. Over there, Noah, who was retreating, had just stabilized himself and stopped in that direction. It was as though he had deliberately become the target of all the light thorns. Puff 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 puff. The sky was filled with light thorns, which blotted out the sky and blotted out the earth as they shot toward Noah. Noah, who had stabilized his body, raised his head and looked at the large number of light thorns mixed with a strange aura. Finally, his face showed a thorny expression. These attacks seemed ordinary, but in fact, each one of them was extremely strange. Without knowing what kind of damage these attacks would cause, Noah did not dare to touch them easily. I must leave this strange fog-like light. With such an idea in mind, in the next second, Noah decisively cancelled the use of the Dragon Emperor incarnation and used the Phoenix incarnation instead. He entered the world of seraphic speed and disappeared in an instant. Pung dash! The overwhelming light thorns heavily collided with each other, causing a circle of ripples like a halo, and then a burst of gorgeous light spots. They cancelled each other out and disappeared, maintaining the state of seraphic speed. Noah rushed in one direction with all his strength. No matter how wide the coverage of this fog-like light was, as long as he rushed in one direction with a speed comparable to real thunder and lightning, he would always be able to rush out. All of a sudden, the mist-like light that shrouded the entire space suddenly trembled. Like a rolling sea, it set off waves of ripples that were like stormy waves. Dong! Noah, who was rushing in one direction at full speed, only felt the surrounding space suddenly become violent, and then, an unimaginable impact hit him fiercely in the state of seraphic speed. Goo dash! Noah let out a muffled groan. He was like a balloon that had hit a solid wall and bounced off. He retreated from the state of lightning speed, and stopped moving. Wing 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 dash! Around him, the fog-like light was still constantly vibrating, setting off circles of ripples. After a long while, from the circles of ripples, countless small light ribbons shot out with a sharp sound, wrapping around Noah's direction. In just a moment, they had wrapped around every corner of Noah. At this moment, Noah was like a small silkworm that was about to be wrapped up in a cocoon. There was no way out. Seeing that the small light ribbons were about to wrap around his body, Noah closed his eyes instead. I, with a violent heart, tightly covered the sky, and declare, roll up a storm for me, rain for me. I will not allow you to disobey my orders. When the spirit of the storm spread throughout the whole space, a breeze suddenly appeared around Noah's body, and began to swirl around Noah's body like a tornado, and it became more and more intense. You dash! Not long after, the sharp sound of the wind rang around Noah's body, and a substantial tornado, with Noah as the center, quickly took shape. It rose from the ground, rushed to the sky, and gradually expanded. In the blink of an eye, it had expanded to a range of more than 10 meters. Pa 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 pa. The light ribbons that were wrapping around him were directly swept up by the tornado, and with a crisp sound, they were directly defeated. Immediately, Noah's cold voice rang out. Explode for me. The tornado that had expanded was completely sluggish. Dong! The violent tornado exploded, and turned into a fierce shockwave, shaking in all directions. Kacha kacha! Noah could already hear the sound of the ground cracking. Around him, the fog-like light was also swept away by the violent shockwave, and no longer continued to fluctuate. Now's the time. Seizing the opportunity, Noah let a gust of wind curl around his body. Under the guidance of the wind, his body shook, and he suddenly soared into the sky, explosively shooting upwards and rapidly increasing in height. Since he couldn't just charge straight up, then he would break through upwards. This was Noah's idea. But in the instant that Noah soared into the sky, not far above Noah's head, an invisible force was constantly acting. Feeling that force, Noah's heart slightly tightened, and reflexively raised one of his hands towards the sky. I am the conqueror who can defeat 1,000 with 100, 10,000 with 1,000, and 10,000 with 10,000. Now for me who stands on the side of justice, please shine brightly, and bestow me with divine power. In Noah's heart, the stone plate that was originally pointing at the storm pattern turned, and pointed at the thunder pattern. Beep beep. A burst of violent lightning flashed in Noah's hand, and directly swept out, angrily shooting towards the sky above. Clang. Just like that, the thunder that soared into the sky suddenly seemed to have collided with something, causing a crisp sound. That was actually a mirror-like light screen that was formed out of the fog-like light that had gathered at an unknown time. The thunder that landed on it was directly bounced off, and such a layer of light screen almost covered the entire sky that Noah could see. If Noah were to rush up like that, he was afraid that he would end up like the thunder that was bounced off. After his eyes flickered a few times, Noah could only helplessly give up the idea of forcibly breaking through. His body turned into a bolt of lightning and violently swept down. After landing on the ground, he once again condensed into a solid body and returned to his original appearance. From the beginning to the end, Orpheus did not use any earth-shattering attacks. He only used this strange force to trap Noah, and it was more troublesome than anything else. Just based on this point alone, he was worthy of his title as the strongest. Chapter 683. Before this, Noah had already mentally prepared himself for Orpheus' power. After all, to be able to leave the top powerhouses of the various forces in the dust, and even the surpassers Syzyx and Achuca claimed that they had no way to fight against him. They could only seek help from Noah. With the existence of unlimited power, the strength of Orpheus could be seen from the literal description of each and every one of them. Even so, Orpheus' power still exceeded Noah's expectations. Noah really did not expect that not only would he be completely at a disadvantage in front of Orpheus, but he would also be trapped by Orpheus' strange power without even being able to see what this power was. This was really too troublesome. If he had sufficient understanding of Orpheus, he should be able to escape this predicament by using the warrior's incarnation. It would not be impossible for him to catch Orpheus off guard and defeat him. The problem was that there were not many people in this world who could say that they understood the dragon god, who was said to have unlimited power, let alone Noah. According to Drake, Orpheus was not a life that was born in this world, but an existence that was born in the void of the dimensional crack. Hence, apart from knowing that the dragon god was a dragon, had infinite power, and was closely related to the Ouroboros, which symbolized infinity, no one in the dragon race dared to say that they knew anything about Orpheus, let alone the other forces. Therefore, the warrior incarnation could not be activated in front of Orpheus. In that case, there's no other way, I can only use it. After murmuring softly, Noah slowly closed his eyes. A burst of extremely violent mana rose from Noah's body bit by bit, like a gradually growing small flame that slowly burned. Not long after, it turned into a terrifying flame that shook from Noah's body. Wung, as if stimulated by Noah at this moment. The fog-like light that pervaded the surroundings began to tremble. Countless light thorns rapidly condensed in the space, and instantly filled the entire space. With a burst of wind sounds, they shot towards Noah, who had his eyes tightly closed. However, in the face of the overwhelming light thorns that shot towards him from all directions, Noah still did not move, and only chanted softly, "I am the strongest, and I hold all victory in my hands. Be it human or demon, I am the one who defeats all enemies. I will defeat any enemy that stands in my way." After such a long time, Noah finally chanted the words that called for victory once again, causing the mana in his body to suddenly surge like boiling water. At this moment, the stone plate in Noah's heart that only pointed in one direction actually trembled and spun wildly. Immediately after, on the outline of the stone plate that spun wildly, 2 of the 10 symbols that represented the incarnation suddenly shone with a dazzling light. Pung. Accompanied by a thunderous explosion, the mana flames that burned from Noah's body all gathered together. In the next moment, a giant that was at least 100 meters tall, and composed of pure mana overlapped on Noah's body, and appeared in this world. That was the incarnation of the giant. Only when using this incarnation, Noah's incarnation of the giant could display unparalleled divine power. And the power of a punch was enough to split mountains and rivers. However, if Guinevere, who had seen Noah's incarnation of the giant, was here, she would be shocked to find out. The giant in front of her was completely different from the giant that Noah used before. Because not only was this giant's body red, even its head had turned into a ferocious dragon's head. Its body was covered with scales, and a pair of wings grew out of its back that covered the sky. There was also a long dragon tail hanging behind its back, and with a gentle wave, it shook the air. That posture was just like a dragon man that covered the sky and covered the sun. In addition to the giant, the other incarnation that Noah used was the dragon emperor. In the next moment, the huge dragon man raised its ferocious dragon head. Roar! A high-pitched dragon roar that sounded like the sky was falling and the earth was splitting violently shook from the huge dragonman's body, and turned into a sound wave that was like a substantial shock wave, causing the surrounding light thorns to be shaken to a halt. Pung! The light thorns that were violently shot out exploded one after another. Goo! At the same time, Noah only felt that the magic power in his body was flowing away at an astonishing speed. It evaporated and turned into the flesh and blood of the ferocious giant red dragon man, allowing the two incarnations of giant and dragon emperor to perfectly fuse together, resulting in such an earth-shattering power. Every part of his body was making sounds that could not bear the burden. All the blood in his body was boiling and circulating at an extremely fast speed. His mana was flowing away at an extremely terrifying speed. Waves of intense pain also came from his head. Using two incarnations at the same time, and even fusing them together, the burden that Noah had to bear had already turned into the most astonishing consumption and damage. In this state, Noah could probably maintain the battle for less than 10 minutes. After 10 minutes, not only would Noah exhaust all his mana, the burden on his body would also cause him to be unable to move. Therefore, Noah had never used two incarnations at the same time. This was a trump card that needed to be hidden even more deeply than the incarnation of the warrior. And by using this trump card of trump cards, it meant that, absolutely, I cannot lose. Among the ferocious crimson dragon man that covered the sky, his entire body was boiling with violent mana, allowing it to form the body of the huge dragon man. Noah, who maintained the form of the huge dragon man, as if there was a huge crimson dragon man overlapping on his body, suddenly raised his head. As if synchronized with Noah's movements, the huge crimson dragon man also suddenly raised his head, causing the entire space to tremble at this moment. And in the surroundings, the mist-like light once again seemed to be stimulated, violently rolling and surging at an unprecedented frequency, crazily surging. Then the mist-like light directly turned into a huge wave of air in the rolling and surging, violently rolling towards the ferocious crimson dragon man amidst the chaotic vibrations of the atmosphere. Roar! The huge dragon man that covered the sky let out a provocative roar towards the huge wave of air without any fear, like a huge dragon standing on the beach roaring towards a tsunami from the sea. It raised a ferocious crimson dragon claw and swung it towards the huge wave of air. Boost, 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 boost. At this moment, on the ferocious crimson dragonman's body, the gems hidden in the scales of the huge crimson dragon man released a series of voices. In an instant, the ferocious dragon claw swung towards the huge wave of air suddenly expanded by a lot. Everywhere it passed, the space trembled violently and exploded extremely cleanly, turning into pitch-black nothingness. Under such circumstances, the terrifying dragon claw and the huge wave of air violently collided. The earth trembled, and so did the sky. Amidst the terrifying loud noise, pitch-black spatial cracks spread out in the mist-like light at a terrifying speed. As if a star had exploded, a terrifying impact spread out from the center of the collision, violently impacting the surrounding mist-like light that Noah couldn't do anything to. Kacha-kacha. The space had already begun to collapse amidst the cracking sounds. Pung! Under that incomparably violent impact, the mist-like light trembled and was torn apart. As the space was being torn apart bit by bit, it was like a fog that was being blown away. Finally, it was violently blown away by the terrifying impact. And in a corner of the mist-like light that was blown away, Orpheus, who was sitting cross-legged on a rock, revealed her figure. Her beautiful face that was as silent as the moonlight from the beginning, without the slightest trace of emotion, finally showed a trace of daze. Chapter 684. What's that? Behind Orpheus, Varley and Hegu, who was holding the kitten, looked at the center of the dispelled fog-like light in front of them with a hint of astonishment on their faces. Boom! There, an extremely tall and ferocious dragonoid with crimson scales and gas-like precious gems appeared. With just a slight movement, it caused the surrounding space to tremble abruptly, bringing about a terrifying pressure that caused Varley and Hege's hearts to tighten. Ever since Orpheus planned to bring Noah back and used that fog-like light to trap Noah, Varley and Hege were unable to know what had happened in that light. That was because it looked like a ray of light at first glance, but in fact it was an alternate space that Orpheus had created with his infinite power. Therefore, neither Varley nor Hege knew what had happened in that alternate space. Under such circumstances, it was no wonder that Varley and Hege were so astonished when they saw the dragonoid that blotted out the sky. In particular, Varley and Hege could feel a terrifying power spreading from the crimson dragonoid's body, causing these two battle maniacs who could fight against a demon king to be terrified. Inside the crimson dragonoid that blotted out the sky, Noah was panting violently. His body was still boiling with an astonishing amount of mana that was used to form the body of the gigantic crimson dragonoid. Looking at Orpheus, who was sitting cross-legged on the rock, a sharp glint flashed across his eyes. "Found you." As soon as he finished speaking, the mana that surged from Noah's body boiled and burned again. Roar! The gigantic crimson draconian, whose entire body was composed of pure magic power, and overlapped on Noah's body like a phantom, suddenly roared. The magic power that made up his body fluctuated like a gas and surged out from his body. In the blink of an eye, the entire world was filled with an astonishing pressure. Under that kind of pressure, Varley and Hege's pupils shrank and their bodies trembled. Their bodies stiffened out of reflex, and they were unable to move. In front of the shocked Varley and Hege, the malevolent huge dragon person once again raised his mountain-sized dragon claw and fiercely slammed it down in Orpheus' direction. With a wave of the mountain-like dragon claw, the atmosphere shook, and violent air currents swirled around the terrifying dragon claw, causing the wind to howl. The turbulence rapidly rolled into a vortex and was carried by the huge dragon claw to attack Orpheus. At first glance, it looked as if a tornado had covered the crimson dragon claw and was blasting towards Orpheus with a sharp sound. Looking at the huge dragon claw that was like a storm, Orpheus' eyes flashed, and he finally stood up. Boom! A burst of black aura that was on par with the crimson huge dragon person and contained terrifying power burst out from Orpheus' petite body. There seemed to be no end to the black flames. They continuously surged out of Orpheus' petite body and finally formed a gigantic black serpent that was as large as the crimson draconid. A ferocious glint flashed in the serpent's eyes. Hiss! The huge snake fiercely roared at the huge dragon person, then raised its huge snake tail and violently swung it out. It was mixed with a burst of energy as it fiercely met the huge dragon claw. At the moment of collision, the space where the huge dragon claw and the huge snake tail came into contact seemed to be torn apart. With a pop sound, the space cracked inch by inch, bringing out a series of black cracks. Boom! The two terrifying attacks, one claw and one tail, were only in a stalemate for a moment before exploding in the sky with a loud bang. The intense collision sound could still be faintly heard by people who were more than 1,000 meters away. The impact caused by the collision of the two turned into a wave-like storm that spread in all directions. Noah and Orpheus, who were protected by the crimson huge dragon person and the huge black snake, ignored the impact that was strong enough to shatter mountains. However, Varley and Hege were caught off guard by the aftermath and were directly blown away like kites with a broken string. Then, an earth-shattering confrontation unfolded in this world. The huge black snake's pitch-black scales shrunk strangely, and a faint layer of black aura seeped out from under the scales and quickly enveloped the huge snake's body. Swoosh! In front of the huge snake, the crimson huge dragon person brandished his dragon claw that was covered in violent air currents and mixed with mana. It smashed towards the snake like a thunderbolt. Boom! The huge dragon claw smashed heavily on the body of the huge snake, causing a deafening muffled sound. However, the huge snake's body was like air without any force, and the shocking blow was neutralized by the layer of black aura on the surface of its body. However, although most of the force of the attack was neutralized, a small part of the force still landed on the giant snake's body. The terrifying power contained in the dragon claw instantly shattered a small part of the scales on the huge black snake's body. Hiss! The huge black snake hissed, and its huge body curled up abruptly. It suddenly swung its huge tail back, and like a counterattack from an injured beast, It ruthlessly whipped the crimson huge dragon person's waist. Boom! Hence, the huge crimson huge dragon person was sent flying like a rubber ball and rubbed against the ground. All the obstacles in its way, including the mountains, trees, rocks, and earth, were all cut open, and a huge abyss was forcefully carved out before it managed to stabilize itself. That scene was simply like a terrifying chaotic battle between prehistoric giant beasts. It was terrifying to the extreme. The huge snake let out a painful groan and kept rolling on the spot. Although most of the force of the huge dragon person's attack was neutralized, don't forget that the huge dragon person was formed by the fusion of the giant and the dragon emperor's incarnation, and naturally had the dragon-slaying power of the dragon emperor's incarnation. After that dragon-slaying power had been multiplied several times and enhanced by the giant's incarnation, it was believed that any member of the dragon race would be severely injured even if they didn't die after being hit by it. And Orpheus was indeed Orpheus. As the infinite dragon god, the amazing dragon-slaying power only made the huge snake roll on the spot in pain, and it was still unknown whether Orpheus was hurt or not. Isn't this dragon god a little too strong? In the phantom of the huge crimson dragon person, Noah, whose whole body was burning with manna, had turned pale. Every part of his body was in excruciating pain, and his head felt as if lava had been poured into it. It was so hot that Noah's vision began to blur. The price to pay for the dragon god to get serious was actually so huge. The power of the two incarnations at the same time, which shocked Syzax and Achuka, was actually only on par with Orpheus. However, Orpheus' power was infinite, and he could always maintain this level of intensity. Noah, on the other hand, could only maintain it for 10 minutes when he used both incarnations at the same time. Now most of the 10 minutes had passed, and there was probably less than 3 minutes left. If he couldn't defeat Orpheus in less than 3 minutes, Noah would no longer have the power to fight back. Fight! At that moment, Noah's eyes showed a trace of ruthlessness, and he raised his head to look at the sky. To be more precise, it should be said that he was looking at the eastern sky. At the same time, in Noah's heart, the shining giant symbol dimmed, and was replaced by another symbol that lit up. The gigantic crimson dragon man stacked on top of Noah's body shuddered before exploding into a burst of crimson gas that soared into the sky. For the sake of victory, quickly come before me. O undying sun, please bestow upon me a shining steed, a spirited steed. Bring me the wheel of light that symbolizes your Lord. The crimson gas that rushed into the sky directly entered the clouds, flashing with a dazzling red light. The next moment, a red sun appeared. Chapter 685. Wang. When the red sun appeared in the sky, an unusually violent wave suddenly rippled in the sky. All of a sudden, the demons who sensed the wave of energy lifted their heads and looked at the sky. When they saw the red sun, their expressions changed abruptly. As the wave became more violent, wisps of red flames that seemed to be substantial surged in the red sun. In the end, they wrapped around the red sun and spun crazily, dispersing the clouds around the red sun. In the huge black snake, Orpheus looked up at the red sun in the sky with an expressionless face. Then he shifted his gaze and stared unblinkingly at the pale-faced Noah in the distance. Noah was burning with terrifying mana flames all over his body. His eyes flickered slightly. As the dragon god who was publicly recognized as the #1 powerhouse in this world, Orpheus' invincibility was deeply rooted in everyone's hearts. However, at this moment Orpheus, who had displayed his infinite power to the fullest, met an opponent who could be called an opponent. Wally had once said that as the #1 powerhouse who was publicly recognized as invincible, even if all the top 10 powerhouses in this world were to join forces, they might not be able to defeat Orpheus. Now Noah was truly able to contend with Orpheus to a certain extent. Of course, with Orpheus' ability, he could naturally see that Noah's power that was comparable to his couldn't last long. He was afraid that Noah had almost reached his limit and couldn't use it anymore. That was why Noah wanted to make a final gamble. If he could withstand the next blow, Orpheus would be able to defeat Noah easily. And of course, the next blow would be to the extent that even Orpheus would have to use all his strength to withstand it. You are very strong. Orpheus once again spat out such words. But, I am undefeatable. As soon as he finished speaking, the gigantic black snake on Orpheus dissipated and turned into black flames that soared into the sky. It continued to expand from Orpheus' body, and turned into a dazzling light that was like another black sun that appeared on the ground. It brought about an extremely ferocious power that surged in all directions. Looking at the dazzling black radiance that seemed to encompass the entire land, Noah gritted his teeth and endured the excruciating pain in his body, the burning sensation in his head, the blurring of his vision, and the rapid depletion of the magic power in his body. He squeezed out the last bit of his strength and poured all of his magic power into the next attack. All of a sudden, the raging red flames around the red sun in the sky became even more vigorous. In fact, the space around the red sun was slightly distorted at this moment. An almost corporeal violent energy fluctuation poured into the red sun, causing the color of the sun to become brighter and brighter, to the point where it had a strange dark red color. Immediately after, Noah's voice reverberated in the sky. Whether you are undefeatable or not, you will have to take my final blow first. As these words came out, Noah's last bit of mana finally left his body and channeled into this final blow. Within the dark red sun, the roiling flames gradually condensed and trembled. In the end, everyone who looked up at the red sun saw it. In the blazing red sun, an incomparably handsome red horse quietly appeared. It was a crimson horse with crimson flames rolling all over its body. Its body was covered in scale-like armor, and every corner of the armor was filled with precious stones. It had a sharp horn on its head, and its eyes flickered with a bloody light. If the legendary dragon horse existed, then the giant red horse that appeared from the red sun was the so-called dragon horse. And it was indeed a dragon horse that carried the power of dragons and the power to slay dragons. It was a dragon horse that was formed by the fusion of the white horse and the dragon emperor. A blood-red light flashed in the eyes of the majestic dragon horse. It raised its head and let out a long neigh. Boost, 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 boost. Then, the gems embedded in the scales of the crimson draconic horse flickered one after another, emitting sounds. The draconic horse, which was already extremely handsome, suddenly grew in size. The rolling flames on its body also became more and more violent and hot. In the end, the entire sky was dyed red. At the same time, the dazzling black light that surged from Orpheus' body also spread out like flames, bringing with it waves of obscure energy. It shook the ground until it cracked inch by inch, and some of the rocks even shattered into a pile of powder. It was extremely terrifying. Orpheus raised his head and looked at the majestic dragon horse in the sky. Sensing a strong sense of danger from it, Orpheus closed his eyes and raised his hand as if he was holding something up. His movements were extremely slow. As a result, the black light that surged from Orpheus' body immediately turned into a huge snake spear. It pointed diagonally at the sky, bringing with it waves of terrifying turbulent scraping sounds. It stirred up waves of extremely terrifying energy fluctuations that flowed along the ground and spilled out. In an instant, the ground suddenly shook and turned into powder. Like a flash flood, the huge snake spear that was formed by the dazzling black light suddenly exploded. Clang! Accompanied by resplendent light that blotted out the sky and earth, an incomparably sharp and ear-piercing sonic boom resounded. The enormous dark black serpent spear cut through space like lightning, shooting straight towards the horizon. Everywhere it passed, the entire space was stirred into a mess and ferociously burst apart. This was Orpheus' all-out attack. The demons who were looking up at the red sun in the sky and discussing fervently only saw a huge black spear shooting into the sky like an arrow that was trying to shoot down the sun. Their vision was almost covered by the dazzling black light that covered the sky and earth. In particular, those demons who could feel the terrifying power contained in the black spear were all horrified and in a mess. The chaos in the outside world naturally did not reach Noah, who was in the middle of a battle. Noah only took a deep breath of chaotic air into his lungs, and endured the burden and pain from both his body and mind. He raised one hand high above his head and swung it down heavily. Nay, in the distant horizon, the majestic dragon horse in the red sun let out a high-pitched roar that sounded like both a horse's neigh and a dragon's roar. When the sky suddenly shook because of this roar, the dragon horse swooped down and turned into a crimson meteor that fell from the sky with terrifying flames. It pierced through the space with an irresistible force and fell with an irresistible force. It was as if a huge rock was thrown into a lake. The originally chaotic space around the draconic horse that fell like a crimson meteorite cracked open and spread rapidly along the trajectory of the falling draconic horse. The terrifying flames that the majestic draconic horse brought along made the air along the way extremely hot. The temperature suddenly rose by an unknown number of levels. The slightly overflowing heat directly melted the shattered space like melted glass, and completely turned the entire space into nothingness. The dazzling black light occupied the entire space below. The scorching flames occupied the entire sky above. The world seemed to have turned into two colors, red and black. It was completely occupied by the crimson horse and the snake spear, showing a beautiful vision of heaven and earth. The space along the way was shaken open, causing the space cracks to spread. It contained a terrifying power. Under the shocked and horrified gaze of all the evil demons who witnessed this scene, the two collided in midair. For a moment, the world suddenly became quiet. The crimson draconic horse and the black snake spear quietly collided. First, there was a light spot at the point of contact. Then, the light spot rapidly expanded in the middle, becoming more and more dazzling and huge. After a while, it turned into a dazzling strong light that covered the entire world. It shrouded the vibration and collapse of the space in it, and exploded. Dong! When the dazzling light sprinkled down from the sky, the entire world exploded with an earth-shaking explosion. It carried an extremely shocking impact as it leaked out from the sky. A burst of strong light that was enough to burn the eyes covered the surroundings, causing everyone to lose their vision. Chapter 686. Boom! A thunderous explosion resounded in the distant sky, as if a mountain was collapsing and the earth was splitting apart. At that moment, countless demons who witnessed the collision between the red sun and the sun-shooting snake spear felt their heads go blank from the explosion, and their ears were temporarily deafened. Some of the weaker demons even fainted and fell to the ground. The sky was red, and the earth was black. Heaven and earth were red and black, and the entire space was gradually collapsing. In the dazzling heaven and earth vision, a tornado-like energy ripple surged out from the center of the collision and swept across the sky. Crack, 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 crack. The space was distorted like a rag, and it couldn't bear the burden and exploded with cracking sounds. Deep black marks spread out, and they were clearly visible. In the full-force collision between Noah and Orpheus, the entire space between heaven and earth was almost blasted apart. The collision was actually so terrifying. The energy ripple that was filled with red flames and black energy formed a storm that spun wildly and released a shocking destructive force. Boom, 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 boom. At the bottom of the energy storm, the earth seemed to have been attacked by the tip of the tornado, and it exploded one by one. Boom, 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 boom. Countless rocks and hills were completely destroyed at this moment, and they turned into dust amidst the muffled explosions. Pa pa, pa pa pa. Everything within a few hundred meters, whether it was trees, rivers, rocks, or hills, were all destroyed by the violent energy storm as if they had fallen into a cataclysm. Only debris was left. Dong! The ripples formed by the force of the impact contained a dense fiery light, covering the entire world. Fortunately, the place where Noah and Orpheus fought was in the wilderness where there was no human habitation, and the territory of the underworld was very vast because there was no sea. The distance between cities and territories was quite far, so large areas of mountains and wastelands were unoccupied. Therefore, even such a terrifying collision didn't cause any real casualties. It only made the demons who witnessed the collision in the nearby cities dizzy, causing many of them to faint, and the windows of the buildings to shatter. If this confrontation had happened directly in the midst of human habitation, the casualties would have been truly terrifying. After an unknown amount of time, the powerful light that enveloped the entire world slowly receded. The energy storm formed by the shockwaves also gradually dissipated. Even the sky and land gradually returned to their original color and color. The temperature also began to fall. However, The shattered space between heaven and earth would take a long time to recover. The demons who witnessed everything panicked one after another, causing the cities to become extremely noisy and chaotic. Some of the armies belonging to the higher-level demon nobles had already begun to move over and planned to head to the scene. Today was destined to be a day of unrest. On the other side, the place where Noah and Orpheus were originally located had completely turned into a wasteland. Rolling gravel, collapsed mountains, broken rivers, annihilated forests. The entire scene was as if they had just experienced the end of the world and luckily escaped a calamity. It was rather shocking. In such a miserable wasteland, in a corner, there was a crumbling barrier full of cracks. Finally, it couldn't hold on any longer and exploded, revealing the situation inside. Inside the barrier was Varley, whose armor was shattered inch by inch, with a trace of blood at the corner of his mouth. Next to Varley, Haegu, who was holding the unconscious kitten, was also in a sorry state, with many parts of his body charred. Both of them stared straight ahead, and there was only shock in their eyes. Just because they were close, they were affected by the aftermath of the impact. These two people with outstanding strength who could fight against the Demon King had ended up in such a state. If someone had told Varley and Haegu before today that they had ended up in such a miserable state just by watching the battle, they would definitely have scoffed at them. However, seeing such a scene today, the bloody truth told Varley and Haegu how far away they were from the battle just now. It was so far away that Varley and Haegu had ended up in such a state just by watching the battle. Of course, Varley and Haegu didn't doubt Orpheus' ability. However, Noah was actually able to compete with Orpheus and cause such an earth-shattering collision, causing the two of them to end up in such a state. Both Varley and Haegu couldn't believe it. Cough cough. Haegu wanted to get up, but his body went limp and he almost fell to the ground. His face was pale, and he couldn't stop coughing. The armor on Varley's body was completely shattered and disappeared, leaving Varley clutching his chest. Blood kept dripping from the corner of his mouth, but his eyes were extremely shaken. He's actually so strong. Compared to Orpheus, who was already invincible among the strong in this world, Varley was more concerned about Noah's strength. Varley knew that Noah was very strong. He was both the Godslayer and the Red Dragon Emperor. It was impossible for Noah not to be strong. However, it was only now that Varley realized that he had always underestimated Noah. In the beginning, Varley thought that Noah could be ranked in the top 20 in this world. In the end, Noah used his strength to tell Varley that it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that he could be ranked in the top 10. When Varley thought that Noah had the strength to be ranked in the top 10, and regarded him as a strong opponent, Noah once again told Varley that he could fight with the invincible Orpheus, who was ranked first. Orpheus was a terrifying existence that wouldn't necessarily be defeated even if he were to face all the other strong people, who could be ranked in the top 10. To be able to compete with Orpheus, how could Noah's strength be tolerated at the level of the top 10? At the very least, Noah could be ranked second in the top 3. Moreover, he was the only one who could compete with Orpheus in the rankings. One could imagine the shock that this fact had on Varley. Not only Varley, but even Haegu was uncertain. He asked with a trembling voice, "Do you think he won against Orpheus?" That's right. This was the main point. Varley gritted his teeth and suddenly rushed out. "Varley!" Haegu exclaimed. He hurriedly carried the kitten and followed. In a corner of the wasteland that had been sliced by countless layers, only a small figure stood there. When Varley and Haegu saw the small figure, they were stunned at first. Then they unconsciously heaved a sigh of relief. Haegu even smiled slightly. It seems that Orpheus won. Varley didn't say anything. He just stepped forward and stood behind Orpheus. Orpheus didn't answer Varley. Instead, he stared blankly in front of him and didn't move for a long time. Following Orpheus's gaze, Varley looked over. Then Noah, who was sitting on the ground with his back against a broken rock, panting violently. His face was extremely pale, and he was imprinted in Varley's eyes. The scene in front of him told everyone who was the winner. However, just when Varley thought that Noah was the loser, Haeji's trembling voice sounded behind him. "Varley, look at Orpheus's chest." Hearing this, Varley was stunned. When he saw Orpheus's chest, his pupils shrank fiercely. That was because the place where the heart should have been was completely empty. Yes, it was empty. The place where Orpheus's heart should have been had completely disappeared. On the other side, Noah, who was leaning against the broken rock, had one hand stained with blood. Seeing this, how could Varley not understand what had happened? Noah and Orpheus' all-out attack were evenly matched. However, at the last moment, Noah used all his strength and used the power of the Dragon Slayer from the Dragon Emperor avatar to dig out Orpheus's heart. I'm afraid that even Orpheus couldn't react in time to this sudden attack, right? Noah had exhausted all his strength and was in a weak state, unable to move. Orpheus's heart was dug out directly. In the end, who won and who lost? No. There was no victory or defeat anymore. After all, Noah had only exhausted himself. He wasn't defeated at all. As for Orpheus, it could be said that he had unlimited power. Born from nothingness, as long as his power was still in a state of circulation, no matter how serious his injuries were, he could rely on his unlimited power to recover. There was no victory or defeat at all. Chapter 687. His head felt like it was being burned by fire, and there was an indescribable pain. His body was unable to exert any strength, and every part of his body was sending signals to Noah, as if it could fall apart at any time. This made Noah feel a little numb, especially within his body. There was not a trace of the originally boundless magic power left. This made Noah's entire body feel empty, as if it had been hollowed out. It might be an exaggeration to say that the current feeling was worse than death, but it was definitely not an exaggeration to say that it was incomparably uncomfortable. Fortunately, in the past month, in order to be able to use two avatars at the same time, Noah had tried this feeling countless times during the special training. Thus, almost subconsciously, Noah used his burning head to squeeze out a bit of consciousness, and used the avatar of an elf. Clang! Sparkling starlight, like fireflies, gushed out from various parts of Noah's body, and enveloped Noah's entire body. It was as if a stream of clear spring water had been poured directly onto Noah's body. Noah only felt that the pain in his body and mind had lessened a lot in an instant. The originally hazy consciousness that was about to be lost gradually began to awaken. Immediately, Noah opened his eyes with difficulty and looked forward. There, Orpheus, who looked like a 12 or 13-year-old girl, was still standing there, a pair of eyes that were as silent as the moonlight was staring straight at Noah, who was leaning against the broken rock, without even blinking. From Noah's angle, he could clearly see that Orpheus' heart had been completely hollowed out. Because of this fact, Varley and Black Goo, who were standing behind Orpheus, looked at Noah with shocked eyes, making Noah laugh bitterly in his heart. Varley and Black Goo must have thought that Noah had dug out Orpheus' heart at the last moment, which was why they were so shocked. Actually, this thought was wrong. Indeed, at the last moment, Noah used his last bit of strength to launch a surprise attack on Orpheus. However, Noah only wanted to see if he could trigger the reaction of the world fragment in Orpheus' body after getting close to him. He wanted to find a way to take out the world fragment, which was why he launched a surprise attack. To his surprise, Orpheus seemed to have thought that Noah was going to do something to her, and actually gave up on her heart. That's right. It was Orpheus who gave up his heart. Orpheus had the ability to share his power with others. At the end of the day, Orpheus, who had unlimited power, was just a collection of power. Therefore, in the eyes of others, giving up one's heart was inconceivable. However, Orpheus saw his heart as a part of his power, and simply gave it up. Under such circumstances, it led to the scene where Noah dug out Orpheus' heart. If Orpheus had not given up on his heart, Noah's surprise attack at the last moment would have at most injured Orpheus a little, and would not have caused such a shocking consequence as having his heart dug out. Therefore, the result was that Orpheus paid a little price. However, due to her own uniqueness, the seemingly shocking injury was actually nothing to her. As for Noah, although he did not suffer any effective damage from Orpheus, his body and mind were under an unimaginable burden because of using two avatars at the same time. His mana was also depleted. Even with the rapid recovery of the elf avatar, he should be able to barely use authority after a while. However, it was impossible to use two avatars to fight again. Without being able to use two avatars, Noah had no chance of winning against Orpheus. In Noah's opinion, this battle was undoubtedly his defeat. However, even though he was well aware of that fact, Noah still pulled himself together, endured the discomfort in his body, and stood up from the ground with great difficulty. He looked straight ahead and met Orpheus' gaze. Orpheus' gaze was fixed on him. No wonder you're known as the strongest existence. Orpheus, you're indeed very strong. Upon hearing that, Orpheus did not say anything. He continued to look at Noah quietly, as if he was trying to remember Noah's appearance. He did not shift his gaze away from the beginning to the end. It was not until a certain moment that Orpheus lifted his feet and slowly walked in the direction of Noah. Noah's body suddenly tensed up. The burden on his body and mind had not been fully recovered. The mana in his body had only recovered to a negligible amount compared to when he was at his peak. In the current situation, Noah could at most use authority once more, and it could only be an avatar. The situation of the battle had entered an overwhelming disadvantage for Noah. Even so, Noah still whipped his still weak body and looked straight at Orpheus. Just like when he faced Maglia when he was a child, saved Alusha, and challenged Kildas. It was also because of this that Noah did not notice. The ears of the kitten, who was still lying in Black G's arms and had her eyes closed, trembled slightly, and then she slowly opened her eyes. Ah! The next moment, Black G, who was still shocked by Noah's battle results, exclaimed. That was because the kitten had suddenly broken free from his arms. With an unprecedented speed, the kitten appeared in front of Noah in a flash like a bullet fired from a gun amidst the sound of air being torn apart. She opened her arms and shielded Noah behind her. The sudden scene stunned everyone present, including Noah. Kitten. Noah, who was still whipping his body, was stunned for a moment and stood up in surprise. After sleeping for an entire month, the kitten had actually woken up at this time. Even Noah did not expect this. In response, the kitten only protected Noah behind her. Her eyes flickered with a determined light, and she looked straight at Orpheus without fear as she said word by word. I won't let you hurt teacher. Orpheus immediately stopped in his tracks and fell into silence. Bain? Black G finally reacted and narrowed his eyes. Get out of the way, Bain. You can't even stop me, let alone Orpheus. Don't waste your energy. Hearing Black G's words, the kitten did not say a word. She still opened her arms, as if intending to be Noah's shield. She firmly protected Noah behind her and silently expressed her will. Seeing that the kitten did not even bother to say a word, Black G glanced at her. I hate disobedient children. Bain, don't make me angry. Otherwise, something terrible will happen. Little Cat still did not say a word. He did not even look at Hegu. He only stared at Orpheus. His eyes were filled with determination the entire time. At this moment, Black G's face finally darkened. At this moment, Orpheus suddenly turned around. Let's go back. This sentence stunned everyone present. Orpheus. Black G said in surprise. Aren't you going to bring that little brother Godslayer back? Orpheus did not answer Black G. Instead, he turned his head to look at Noah and said this. You are very interesting. I will come find you again. Without using the ancient tone of I or thou, Orpheus left behind this sentence that made people feel close to him. Then, with a vibration in the air, he disappeared. Seeing this, Black G had a look of disbelief on his face. However, he received an order from the silent Wali. Let's go back, Black G. Yes. Black G could only nod unwillingly and stare at the kitten. Bain, I will come find you again. For a moment, a trace of fear appeared in the kitten's eyes, but it immediately turned into determination. No matter what, I won't let you hurt teacher. Humph. Black G snorted coldly. The light of a teleportation magic array flashed on his body, and he disappeared. Only Wally was left. He stared straight at Noah and said this after a while. You are stronger than I thought. I can't compare to you now, but I will catch up. After saying this, The light of a teleportation magic array flashed on Wally's body and he disappeared. It was only at this moment that Noah breathed a sigh of relief. All the physical and mental fatigue suddenly surged up, causing his vision to blur. His body went limp and he almost fell. At this critical moment, the kitten hurriedly supported Noah and called out worriedly, "Teacher, I'm fine. I just overexerted myself." Noah shook his head. "Let's go back." The kitten nodded and supported Noah as they slowly walked in the direction of the Jumanli residence. Chapter 688. The battle between Noah and Orpheus was too shocking, causing the nearby cities to be affected. It even caused panic among the demon residents, causing a huge uproar in the entire demon world. After that, the 4 demon kings, including Syzax, Seraph, Achuka, and Felubium, also received the news and sent people to investigate the scene. In the end, they saw a wasteland that had been destroyed so badly that it was unbearable to look at. Due to the fact that the current underworld was inseparable from humans in terms of reproduction, there were many places that were similar to the human world in many ways. Under such circumstances, coupled with the fact that too many demons had witnessed the earth-shattering collision at the last moment of the battle between Noah and Orpheus, this matter could not be concealed at all. Therefore, almost the next day, the news of 2 terrifying powerhouses fighting in the underworld and raising a territory to the ground spread like wildfire throughout the underworld. And even the fallen angels knew about it. For a moment, the entire underworld was in a mess. Every demon and fallen angel was discussing who exactly was the expert that caused the collision in the battle. This caused the underworld to be filled with people discussing this matter in a short 2 to 3 days. It could be said that the entire city was in an uproar, and it was extremely noisy. Many higher-ups of the demons felt that with 2 terrifying people in the underworld, they could not be ignored. Therefore, they held countless meetings to discuss this matter in depth. The general content was nothing more than whether the 2 powerhouses were planning to do something in the underworld, whether it would affect the demon world, or whether they were simply targeting the demons. They were having a lot of fun because of this. The most important thing was that they had to figure out the identities of the 2 powerhouses. Otherwise, they would not be able to feel at ease at all. To put it bluntly, these higher-ups of the demons felt that their lives were finally threatened, and they were all panicking. They could only think of various ways to feel at ease. If these higher-ups of the demons knew that one of the 2 powerhouses that made them fear was Noah, whom they had planned to target not long ago, their expressions would definitely be very interesting, right? Regardless, in the end, the upper echelons of the Abyss Devils held many meetings and conducted many discussions and research, but in the end, nothing was decided. This was because not long after that, the 4 demon kings, led by Syzax, Seraph, Achuka, and Felubium, suddenly ordered that they were not to pursue the matter further. This sudden order naturally caused the dissatisfaction of many of the higher-ups. But that was an order given by the 4 demon kings. No matter how dissatisfied they were, these higher-ups could only accept it obediently. Every day, they would be vexed over this matter. Many of them couldn't even sleep well, which was very ironic. Under such circumstances, the party involved, Noah on the other hand, rested comfortably for a period of time. "Teacher, here's some water." In an extremely spacious room, Kitten held a cup of water and handed it to Noah, who was sitting on the bed. This made Noah's face turn bitter. "I say, Kitten, I'm not a patient, let alone a seriously injured person. You don't have to take care of me like this." In the battle with Orpheus, although Noah had overexerted himself and suffered a lot of burden both physically and mentally, he did not suffer any injuries. And the battle with Orpheus had been going on for about 3 days. With such a long time, coupled with the recovery of the elf incarnation, Noah had returned to his best state in all aspects. He had even benefited a lot from the battle with an opponent of Orpheus level, and he had also gained some understanding of using the incarnation at the same time. No matter how one looked at it, there was no reason for Noah to be taken care of now. However, in the past 3 days, Kitten had imprisoned Noah in the room and did not allow him to go out. She also treated Noah as a patient or an injured person, which was really unbearable for Noah. Kitten had always only said one thing: No. With an unquestionable tone, Kitten shook her head. In the past month, teacher has been taking care of me and talking to me while I was unconscious. Now, it's my turn to take care of teacher. This was Kitten's way of saying. Noah was simply speechless. But I'm not injured or sick. There's no need to take care of me like this, right? No. Kitten refused without hesitation. If I say no, it means no. Her attitude was unprecedentedly tough. She was tough to the point of being unreasonable. No, in fact, Kitten was being unreasonable. She was treating a person who had no illness or pain as a patient or an injured person. If this was not unreasonable, then what was? However, Noah also knew that Kitten, who was not good at expressing her feelings, was expressing her clumsy gratitude to him. Therefore, Noah could not refuse and could only accept it helplessly. By the way, Kitten's ears and tail were still exposed. She was not in a state of hiding. In the past 3 days, except for the 4 demon kings, Sizax, Seraph, Achuka, and Felubium, who came to Noah to ask about the battle that day, Kitten remained in this state and was not as secretive as before. Asashel said that Kitten could only awaken after accepting the power of the immortal arts hidden in her body. Although it was in order to save Noah that day, the Kitten had chosen to accept his power and awaken from a deep sleep. But since then, the Kitten had never shown any resistance to his power. After confirming this, Noah could not help but reach out and touch Kitten's ears. Meow. Kitten seemed to feel itchy. Her pair of cat ears trembled slightly and her pretty face blushed slightly. However, she did not reject Noah's intimate action. She lowered her head and a comfortable look flashed in her eyes. Noah, who felt that Kitten had really gotten over it, spoke softly. You're finally not rejecting yourself? Hearing this, the comfortable look in Kitten's eyes turned into a complicated look. After a while, it turned into an unwillingness to be outdone. I just feel that there's no need for that. No need for that. Noah was confused. What do you mean? On the day I was taken away by my sister, although I was still in a deep sleep, I saw the battle between teacher and Orpheus. Kitten seemed to be recalling the battle that day, and showed an expression of lingering fear and bitterness. When I saw teacher and Orpheus with that kind of power, I couldn't help but think that both of you were not devoured despite having such powerful power. If I were to go berserk because of my own power, that would really be too stupid. Today was probably the most talkative day Kitten had ever been. However, Noah knew that Kitten was speaking from the bottom of her heart. He guessed that the battle between Noah and Orpheus had really shocked Kitten. That was probably why she had such thoughts of making a living. Of course, it also had something to do with the fact that Noah had been talking to the sleeping Kitten for the past month. After seeing teacher's true power, I always have the thought that it would be unreasonable if I don't take a step further. Kitten was a little embarrassed to say this. So I'll try to work hard. Yes. Try to work hard. After all, the Kitten could only display such a demeanor in front of Noah, Leah, and the others who were close to her. She still could not face outsiders calmly. Therefore, Kitten was still in the stage of working hard. For such a Kitten, even Junai had a complicated expression of, I also need to work hard. It seemed that even Junai was influenced by Kitten and felt that if they continued, they had to face the blood in their bodies directly. In other words, the Jimins were overcoming their weaknesses bit by bit, and moving in a very good direction. At this point, even Noah could not help but think so. Leah really has a group of good Jimins. The embarrassment on Kitten's face became even more intense, and she stuffed the water in her hand in Noah's hands. Then, I'll go out first. Teacher, continue to rest. After saying this, Kitten left Noah's room, looking at Kitten's gradually fading figure, until Kitten closed the door and completely left Noah's sight. Noah raised one of his hands. Over there, an incomplete feather that was emitting a soft white light floated above. That was naturally the world fragment that was originally lodged in Orpheus' heart. Finally something. Chapter 689. Originally, Noah had thought that Orpheus was the same as Bio in the past. They both treated the world fragment as the core of life and derived life from it. During the battle with Orpheus, Noah thought that if he could rely on his unique connection with the world fragment to trigger a reaction from the world fragment, he might be able to have some effect on Orpheus. This was the reason why Noah launched a surprise attack on Orpheus at the last moment. However, when Orpheus simply abandoned his heart along with the world fragment and continued to move as usual, Noah knew that Orpheus was different from Bio. He did not treat the world fragment as the core of his life. It was only because the world fragment hosted the infinite power in his body. In other words, the world fragment did not host Orpheus himself, but Orpheus symbolized the infinite power of the Ouroboros. Therefore, Orpheus regarded his heart as a part of his power. After abandoning it, Orpheus was still able to move freely. The world fragment also fell into Noah's hands following Orpheus' abandonment. Because of this, Noah did not only obtain the world fragment, but also another thing. After putting away the incomplete feather that was releasing a soft white light, Noah raised his other hand. On this hand, a ball of dark light that was connected head to tail like an Ouroboros gently floated up. That was Orpheus' snake. Orpheus called his limitless power the power of the snake. And the power that Orpheus gave others was naturally also called snake. In other words, Noah did not only obtain the world fragment, but also the heart that Orpheus had abandoned as a source of power. It also became Orpheus' snake, and fell into Noah's hands. Orpheus' snake could increase the power of others to a certain extent. Noah did not know if he could also increase his power to a certain extent if he used Orpheus' snake. At that moment, staring at the snake, floating in his hand, Noah fell into deep thought. After a long time he shook his head. I reckon that even if I use this snake, my power won't increase much, right? Noah's words were not completely baseless. After all, Syzax had said that the descendants of the three old demon kings, Leviathan, Beelzebub and Asmodeus, originally only had the power of the highest level of demons. After using Orpheus' snake, they were promoted to the demon king level. The promotion from the highest level of demons to the demon king level might be quite tempting for others, but it was basically useless for existences at Noah's level. In fact, Varley also did not use Orpheus' snake. According to a Sashal in the disaster cluster, those who had the strength of a demon king were not allowed to use Orpheus' snake. It was conceivable that Orpheus' snake could only increase the power of existences above the demon king level, not to mention existences like Noah who were definitely above the demon king level. Therefore, instead of using Orpheus' snake to increase his insignificant power, Noah would rather choose to use it for research. Maybe I can study the origin of Orpheus' unlimited power. Noah's eyes flashed as he stared at the dark ball of light that resembled an Ouroboros. If I can obtain limitless power like Orpheus, that would be truly helpful to me. After making up his mind, Noah put away the dark ball of light that resembled an Ouroboros. At this point, Noah's purpose of coming to this world had been achieved. Thinking of this, Noah lifted his quilt, got out of bed, and walked out of his room. The Gimli family's scale was similar to a castle. It should be said that it was not only the scale, but also the internal layout was almost the same as a castle. People could not help but think that it was a waste to live in such a place. In fact, this was not the Gimli family deliberately built this extravagantly to show their status and wealth, but to effectively use the land. As mentioned before, there was no sea in the underworld, so the land was very wide. And in the underworld, the main races that lived there were demons and fallen angels. Since the ancient war, the number of demons and fallen angels had greatly decreased, to the point where they could not reproduce without relying on humans. It was conceivable that the population of the demons and fallen angels was very tight. In addition, the underworld's area was basically the same as the human world's Earth. There was no sea, and the population was so limited, so naturally, most of the land could not be effectively developed, and could only be wasted. It was because of this that the four demon kings not only did not advocate restraint, but also advocated for the demons to be more extravagant in using the land and not let it be wasted. Noah had even heard that every pure-blooded demon noble would bestow a portion of their territory to their kin for them to use, including Lyath. In other words, whether it was Junai, Aisha, Kitten, Genova, Irina, Label, or Kibayuto, they all had their own land in the Gimli family's territory. And the Gimli family's territory was basically the same size as the entire Japan. For a noble to have such a large territory, just how much land was in the underworld? Just thinking about it would make one speechless. Under such circumstances, in order to not let the land be wasted, the Gimli family naturally built as large as possible, resulting in this extravagant appearance that was even more exaggerated than a castle. So much so that if Noah wanted to find someone, he basically had to ask the butlers or maids in the Gimli family to lead the way. Thus, under the guidance of a maid, Noah came to the Gimli family's hall that was comparable to an audience with an emperor. Noah thought that Lyath should be here, so he came here. Who knew that apart from Lyath, there was another person who had nothing to do with this place? Yo! Holding a glass of red wine, Asashel leisurely sat on the sofa with one leg crossed over the other as he greeted Noah. Finally willing to come out of the room? In addition to Asashel, Lyath was also present, and she spoke to Noah in surprise. Teacher, can you get up now? Hearing Lyath and Asashel's words, Noah obviously frowned. Are you also treating me as a patient and an injured person? Hearing this, Asashel and Lyath looked at each other and laughed bitterly. Asashel said directly, your opponent is that Orpheus. Generally speaking, not to mention an injured person, it's not strange for him to become a dead person, right? To be honest, I'm also very surprised. Lyath sighed. I didn't expect Teacher to be able to fight that Orpheus. It made me realize once again that Teacher is not a person of the same dimension as us. It's not just you. Even Sazax and I are probably not in the same dimension as Noah, right? Asashel took a sip of red wine. Orpheus is ranked first in the world, but even so, this dragon god with unlimited power is not in the same dimension as the rest of the guys in the top 10. To be able to fight that Orpheus like that, there's basically no one in this world who can be on the same level as him. It's not as exaggerated as you say. Noah could not help but shake his head. Asashel's words should have been seen when I was training with Sazax and a Chukat. I can fight against Orpheus entirely, because I'm using the power of two avatars at the same time. The huge burden of using two avatars at the same time is something I can only bear for about 10 minutes. A 10-minute fight is not even on the same level. You should be content, kid. Asashel could not help but laugh. Do you know how many of the top 10 powerhouses in this world are delusional to be able to hold on for more than a minute in the hands of Orpheus? You, on the other hand, can fight against Orpheus for 10 minutes? That guy, Wally, has probably completely regarded you as a target, right? Wally was once a member of the fallen angel camp. As a descendant of Lucifer, Wally was adopted by Asashel when he was young. In other words, Asashel was equivalent to Wally's adoptive father. Asashel knew Wally very well. Let's not talk about this. Noah removed Orpheus from his mind, and then looked at Lyath. Actually, I'm here to tell you that I'm planning to leave for a month. Help me convey this to the others. Chapter 690. Leave for a month? Both Lyasel and Asashel were stunned at the same time, but they immediately reacted. Could it be? Lyasel said hesitantly, Teacher, are you planning to undergo special training again? It was natural to have such a guess. Noah had just undergone a month of special training not long ago, and after returning from the special training, he was defeated by Orpheus. It was not surprising that he would want to undergo special training again. Are you serious? You want to undergo special training again? Even Asashel was surprised. Previously, you weren't proficient in using the power of two clones, which was why Sazax and Achuka could accompany you. But now with your power, not just Sazax and Achuka, even the 4 great demon kings could accompany you in special training. With that level of training, it's possible that you could kill all 4 great demon kings if you're not careful, right? Is it that dangerous? Lyasel could not help but be stunned, and then she tried to persuade him with some kind words. I think that you are already strong enough, teacher. You don't need to undergo any special training. After hearing what Lyasel and Asashel said, Noah could not help but let out a bitter laugh. The two of them must have thought that Noah was unwilling to be defeated by Orpheus, so they thought that way, right? Noah was the unprecedented deicide and the strongest red dragon emperor in history. With such a status and power, it was understandable that people would think that he was unwilling to accept his defeat. Indeed, Noah had not lost to anyone in a one-on-one duel for a long time. Ever since he completely controlled the huge amount of magic power in his body and learned the crushing magic, Noah had never lost to anyone in a battle since he fully matured. However, that did not mean that Noah had never lost before. When he was young, in order to save Alusha, Noah was seriously injured by Maglia, and one of his shoulders was almost crippled. In the past, Noah had also challenged Kildas and lost miserably. In addition, at that time, Laxus was extremely unhappy with Noah and would find fault with Noah every now and then. Although Noah had never given in, it did not mean that Noah did not accept the fact that Laxus was stronger than him at that time. In addition, in the world of the deicide, Noah also won because the two highest level gods, Welslana and Mekhl, went easy on him and had amazing luck. Many times when he was dealing with the god of disobedience, he thought that the other party was powerless, but in the end he was fooled by the other party's messy authority and resurrection authority. Therefore, some failures did not mean that Noah could not accept it, but only told Noah that he was still far away and that he still needed to work. However, Noah could not explain why he wanted to leave for a month. Could he tell Liaz and Asashel that he planned to go to another world, and that no matter how long he spent in another world, only a month would have passed when he came back? Then let's not talk about Liaz for now. Asashel would probably ask for an explanation, right? No matter what, this guy was a researcher. These things could easily arouse Asashel's curiosity. At that moment, Noah simply nodded. Don't worry, I have another partner who will accompany me in the special training. Seeing that Noah did not say anything more, Liaz and Asashel also understood that it was useless for them to say anything more. A month. Liaz frowned. Then the summer vacation is over, right? Yes, Noah said to Liaz. So help me apply for leave from the school. Understood. Liaz could only compromise and look straight at Noah. When do you plan to leave, teacher? Just as Liaz finished her question, a suspicious voice echoed in her ears. Leave. Noah plans to leave? As such a sentence was said, at the entrance of the hall, two figures slowly walked in. It was a pair of a man and a woman. The man's hair was as red as Sazak's and Lias. The woman looked very similar to Liaz, but her temperament was more mature. Liaz immediately stood up. Father, mother. The newcomers were Liaz's parents. Am I disturbing you? Liaz's father smiled elegantly at Liaz, and then bowed to Asashel. Oh, so the governor is here too. Our hospitality is lacking. It's fine. I'm just here to relax and wait for Sazak to come back. Asashel waved casually. You don't have to mind me. Just do your own thing. Understood. Liaz's father nodded. On the other hand, Liaz's mother's gaze turned to Noah, and her expression suddenly became gentle. I heard that you're recuperating. Are you all right? The battle between Noah and Orpheus was only known to the four demon kings, Asashel, Liaz, and their kin. To outsiders, the battle between Noah and Orpheus was kept a secret. The main reason was to not let the demons panic too much and cause unnecessary trouble for Noah. I'm fine now. Noah smiled bitterly. Thank you for your concern, Mr. and Mrs. Gimli. Upon hearing that, Liaz's father frowned. Didn't I say many times that you don't have to call me sir? Even if you say so? Noah spread his hands. Then how should I address you? Well, Liaz's father suddenly became a little enthusiastic. Actually, you can call me father. The corner of Noah's mouth twitched violently. In the past, such a situation had happened to Noah before. Gaia, Aleia, and Pandora, the three girls who looked like they had not even reached adulthood, had asked Noah to be their mother. Now, even someone who called himself father had finally appeared. On the side, Asashel turned his face away and kept snickering. Liaz, on the other hand, blushed to the bottom. Why did Noah call Liaz's father father? There was no need to say the reason. Dear, you're being too hasty. Liaz's mother immediately reminded her. This kind of thing should be done step by step. It's too early to be happy. That's true. Leah's father touched his head embarrassedly. It seems that I'm too impatient. The children should have their own plans too. I'll wait obediently. Father. Mother. Leah's could not hold it in any longer and cried out. Can you please stop talking among yourselves? What do you mean by completely ignoring my wishes? Leah's words made Leah's mother narrow her eyes. Leah's, don't forget that you canceled the engagement with Phoenix. Your father and Sizak spent a lot of effort to promote this engagement, but you ruined it. The other nobles even said that the capricious young lady of the Gimli family used the legendary god Slayer to cancel the engagement. Even if you're the Demon King's sister, your behavior should be restrained. The capricious young lady used the legendary god Slayer? Wasn't that referring to Noah? It seemed that the nobles were not stupid. They all knew that Noah and Leah's engagement was actually very fake. Of course, Riaz herself understood that as well. She was speechless all of a sudden. In this regard, it was Noah who spoke up to help. It's precisely because she's the Demon King's sister that the marriage partner should be chosen carefully. Mr. Gimli, Madam Gimli, I think that the young master of the Phoenix family and Leah's are not that suitable. Even if the two of you are anxious for Leah's to give birth to the next heir of the Gimli family, you can't force these two to be together just because of this, right? That will only lead to rumors after the marriage that the next head of the Gimli family is not on good terms with the third young master of the Phoenix family. Won't it? Leah's father and mother looked at each other and stood up. After all, nobles were all concerned about their reputation. Just like what Madam just said, this kind of thing should be done gradually, Noah said kindly. As long as we let nature take its course with Leah's qualifications, it shouldn't be too difficult to find her other half, right? Please have some confidence in your daughter. Instead, it was Leah's father and mother who laughed out loud at that. But hasn't Leah's already found her other half? This time, it was Noah's turn to be speechless. But you're right. This kind of thing should be done gradually. Leah's father and mother laughed meaningfully at the same time. We'll be waiting for your good news. Noah and Leah's looked at each other and sighed. As expected, there would be all kinds of trouble if this dragged on. You're tuning in to the Lee May's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.